Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Matthew, I feel like we should have dressed up for this week's episode. We've got a double Oscar plus the drop of our Oscar nominations this week. We've got a lot going on.
Oh my God! It's finally here, Ernesto. This is the moment we wait for. This is the moment we've been prepping for. This is the moment that we start going into grinding mode. For sure. Like, all right, the noms are out. Let's see what we've already gotten. Let's see what's on the horizon. This is when this road begins. I am very, very excited that the Oscar noms have finally dropped, and it was due. It has been delayed twice, actually, due to the LA fire. So completely understanding of why they delayed it, and but now, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You know, Hollywood was not doing great over there, and hopefully everyone who lives in LA, especially to our friend over there, Nick DeLorenzo, who lives over in LA. I hope he's doing all right. I reached out to him. He said he's doing fine. So that's good. And yeah, hopefully everyone was able to start the recovery process over there in LA. And within all that, we've been seeing a lot of repercussions in the definitely in the award circuit. Critics' Choice, especially, they were supposed to have their award show in like second weekend of January, and they pushed it all the way back to the first weekend of February. So almost a whole month from now. So yeah. So Oscar noms, we're going to be talking all of that. We're going to be talking about the snubs, the surprises, you know, every kind of dissecting the Oscar noms. I expect not all of them, but definitely the big ones, and then how we're going to proceed moving forward for the next couple of weeks. So if you like our Oscar coverage, strap in.
We're just getting ramped up. And this is not to be confused with our predictions. So we're just going to talk nominations. And then once it gets closer, because then Matt has already done his detective work and found where we can watch all the things. So then once we finish, which I've started Chip knocking stuff off. So I'm pretty excited. Like, I've already watched all the documentary shorts.
Oh wow! Oh man, you're ahead of me.
Yeah.
You're ahead of me
for
right
once
now.
this year.
I
was like, these are the ones. But the documentaries and the docu-shorts are always the hardest for me because it's usually like very sensitive subjects. So it's like it's like a lot to digest in one sitting. So
well, I told you, I was like, hey, we got to watch this one live action short because they might take it away from their website, because that typically happens. Some inside baseball here, like a short can be available on like YouTube or whatever, and then once it gets nominated, they take it away.
Yeah. And
because it got nominated. So like sometimes if you can catch it on, especially on certain, like especially YouTube or their personal website, sometimes if you catch it like the day of the nominations, you can still watch it before they take it away.
Yeah.
So there was one that I had that feeling that like, oh, they might take it away, and I'll still watch this one before they take it. And even that one was like rough material already. I was like, damn, man.
Yeah, that one was rough.
Can we just have a nice happy short? Why they all got to be serious and like depressing? And we'll talk about that one later.
Yeah.
But for right now, like I said, we're gonna be diving into all of the Oscar nominations, all the big ones, in addition to how it compares to the other award nominations. As we kind of like, it's been a minute since we've talked about, a lot has happened in between episodes, and the last two we were specifically talking about Nosferatu, and we had Morgan on the show. Then we had a great episode with Christina Watkins, and we talked about her book and A Real Pain that is also nominated. Nosferatu is also nominated as well. But now it's this back, Ernesto and I, so we want to kind of dissect of how the award circuit is looking right now. So in addition to the Oscar noms, we're going to be comparing it to the Golden Globe winners, as well as some of the stuff that was nominated for the Critics' Choice, which we've already done. But now we're going to kind of fine-tune it specifically to what was nominated at the Oscars, in addition to the Screen Actors Guild Awards, the Directors Guild Awards, the Producers Guild Awards, and lastly, you can't talk about the best without the worst. We're going to mention some of the Razzie nominations, and so that's always a fun time. So be sure to check out all that stuff. We got a jam-packed episode for you guys this week. But like Ernesto mentioned, we have a double feature, a two-time Oscar-nominated. No, not a two-time. They were nominated for more than that.
Yes.
More than 2 times. But we're going to be talking about 2 Best Picture nominees. And the first one we're going to be diving to is A Complete Unknown, which was nominated for 8 Academy Awards, starring Timothée Chalamet, Edward Norton, Elle Fanning, and Monica Barbaro, who 3 out of the 4 were nominated in the acting category, so we'll definitely be talking about that. Written and directed by James Mangold, who himself is a 5-time Oscar nominee. He's also the director behind Walk the Line, 3:10 to Yuma, Night and Day, The Wolverine, Logan, Ford v Ferrari, and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And also, it was also written by Jay Cox, who himself is a 3-time Oscar nominee screenwriter, and he's responsible for Gangs of New York, Silence, and The Age of Innocence. This movie, A Complete Unknown, is based off of a novel from based on a novel called Dylan Goes Electric from author Elijah Wald. Wald, yeah. Definitely kind of a decent amount to unpack here. But let's first, our initial thoughts. Ernesto, what are your thoughts on the film?
Initial thoughts is I think Timothée Chalamet and Bob Dylan was a fantastic transformation just through makeup, his mannerisms, like looking at certain side by sides, just to see how they walk and just like how he carried himself. He fully encompassed his role. To be honest, like to me, this was the best thing about the movie. Unfortunately, I feel like story structure wise, it was given to me as if like, hey, you're already supposed to know all this shit about Bob Dylan, right? I felt like going into it, like my main takeaway was that Pete Segar, and obviously I don't know. Obviously, I know nothing. Like I didn't know that he sang that this land. I was like, he started singing. I was like, I know that song. I didn't know he sang that song. I was like, that's kind of cool. And I didn't realize how connected he was to Bob Dylan. Like to me, that was interesting. Yeah. But I would have liked to have known more about Bob Dylan before he got to that point to understand him as a human being. Because I felt like he was just like, he was like, I'm gonna do what I want. Like I'm gonna go. Like I'm like, I'm doing my own thing. But it was. I felt like I didn't really know him. It felt like more of an outside perspective looking at him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it really does. And I've also seen that complaint online as well, that Bob Dylan, maybe on purpose, like has always been like a mystery. So just as the audience for myself, to your point, I didn't really know the person Bob Dylan, or even like what I'm supposed to perceive by even now the character of Bob Dylan portrayed by Timothée Chalamet. I feel like that we were just thrown into like, this is like a musical genius prodigy.
Yeah.
A lyrical genius, a musical prodigy. Like the first time we see him, Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan is in a bar. He's looking for, man, I forgot who he wanted to visit the hospital. I forgot that artist. But he wanted to meet him. That's where he met, wow, I gotta maybe pull up IMDb.
I got you.
Thank you. Because these names are. He wanted to visit an artist who he met, who then he runs into Edward Norton, who was playing Pete Segar, and then the story kind of takes place from there, finding this unknown artist, and that was like the kickoff.
Woody Guthrie is who he went to go visit.
Thank you very much.
And I think it's Pete Seeger. Seeger.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah, Seeger. Yep, Pete Seeger. So that's how the movie kicks off, and like we don't really get to know how he got there. He explained that he took a bus to get there, but throughout the whole movie, it was about his musical journey and less about character development, in my opinion. Because the only character development that I thought that he had in this movie was within his music, and maybe that was the point. Like obviously, the first half of the music is him growing as a folk artist, and then the second half was him transitioning into new music and how the people that loved him and his music were kind of going against him. Well, 50-50. There was a certain audience that, like, you know, you're going into this electric guitar, this rock, this new sound, and we all hate it. But he's kind of going in the beat of his own drum, kind of doing what he wants to do. And like later down in life, it's kind of like he was ahead of its time. And now we see his music, his newer-ish music at the time, not his folk music, as some of the best songs that I've ever written. People fall in love with his songs, even though at the time, you know, people didn't necessarily love it because he was known for, you know, writing folk music and a less electric, more, you know, string and acoustic. So, like, that part, I understand that there was a journey, there was a character development within his music. Like, that was the main takeaway I got from him. Again, it just as a character, I feel like that he didn't change at all. He was the same person from the bar as the same person who's riding in his motorcycle, like driving away at the end of the movie, if that makes any sense.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, there was no, at least with us, I felt like there was no growth. He's like, but maybe that's the point, is that through all this bullshit that happened, he remained the same, and that's why he is recognized for what he's done, because of how much of a visionary he is with his lyrics and just the sound that he wanted to put. But I actually thought, you know, the musical numbers were great. I thought they were done really, really well. I think Timothée Chalamet is showcased how much work he put into the role with learning how to sing, how to play the guitar, and not only learning how to do those things, but trying to capture the sound and feel of this iconic artist. Like, that in itself is a feat in itself. Very similar to Joaquin Phoenix playing Johnny Cash in Walk the Line.
Yeah, also directed by James Mangold.
Exactly, yeah.
So obviously James Mangold is very familiar with this type of storytelling of like this biopic, this musical biopic.
Yeah.
And I think overall, like, the movie was shot well. Absolutely. It looked good. I think my biggest problem was the story structure. And I think you kind of nailed it on the head earlier, where it's like, this movie is meant for Bob Dylan fans. And like, you're supposed to know that these events happened. And I felt in a way disconnected to the overall story. Yeah. And there's always that conversation that we typically fall into, is it our job to have this predetermined knowledge going into a movie, or is it the movie's job to give us the information we need to follow along with the movie?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Finish your thought.
And I feel like when we watched Oppenheimer, I really, really enjoyed that movie, but there were parts of it that I was confused in upon watching it the first time. Then, after doing a little bit of research, learning more about Oppenheimer, learning more about the nuclear bomb, and like how all of that, like, I forgot some of the terminology of it, but the site that they were in, learning more about it through YouTube videos and like interviews, and like, oh, okay, now I understand a little bit more about how the situation happened. I watched the movie again, and I had a much, much deeper appreciation for the film. So like, I enjoyed it in a technical, in a like a filmmaking aspect. Upon a second time watching it, I was able to now appreciate it for its storytelling. And also its editing too, which, you know, it was like shot in black and white, and the Robbie Downey Jr. scenes and all that stuff. So now I feel like this is in a similar vein, where the movie is expecting us to have this predetermined knowledge, and maybe upon a second viewing, I might have a better appreciation for the movie. But walking out of it after my initial first viewing, it's just like, I didn't feel like I walked away being wowed, I guess.
Yeah, and it's just that sense of being lost. But it's true. You bring up a good point. Is it the movie's job to tell us what's going on, or should we kind of know this information going into it? I think it's the movie's job. They need to, like, this movie should have been the thing that's like, hey, let's bring people who don't know Bob Dylan, let's bring them over and show them him, and like get them to love him through this story. And then that's how you create more interest interested and make us understand why you wanted to make a movie about this. And then for people who are already Bob Dylan fans, they're like, oh yeah, we know it's because of this, this, and this. Oh look, he showed this. Oh look. Oh, they're gonna highlight the Newport Folk Festival. But like for us going in as casual viewers, we're like, oh, like okay, well, I guess is this supposed to be important? Oh, okay. Is that lady important? She seems like she's important.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
it feels like it's important.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's their job to really bring us into the narrative to make us care. That's what that time is there for.
Yeah, I also feel like there was a moment in the movie where I was like, I don't know what we're building toward. I don't know what the ending is.
Yes.
It's like, I think that was my other problem too. Like we were just watching the events play out as they did. And then there was a point in this, 2 hour and 20-minute movie. I'm pretty sure it's runtime. 2 hours and 21 minutes. There was a point when I was watching this movie, I was like, where's our end game? Like clearly I can tell that this is not spanning his career.
Yeah.
Like we are very fixated on a specific point in time. So I can tell like halfway through that we're not going to go down and like, and then like we're not doing like no flash forwards or anything. It's pretty standard on this specific piece of time. So I knew that. So like I don't know what we were building toward, how we decided to use the, what was our climax. Obviously the Newport Festival, the second time he showed up, or the third. It's basically when he was introducing his new sound.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that that's what he was doing. Like I'm not sure if you ran into the same problem. Like I knew that he was experimenting with new music, toward the latter half of the movie. But I was unaware that people, like this was the first time that he was performing it. Yeah, I know that he was in the recording studio, but I thought people were already familiar with his music.
Yeah.
Not realizing that the festival was where he was debuting his new music, even though he was specifically told not to. So that was where a little confusion lied. And then shortly after, the movie was over. And it wasn't until thinking about it afterward that, okay, this movie is about his transition into his new style of music from where he originated from, and then how he became an icon within that change. Even though the people at the time didn't appreciate it, the people of today really do. You could even think of it like, in a less dramatic sense. You have Taylor Swift, who started out as a country artist. Yeah. Then she moved over to be a pop artist, and now she's one of the biggest pop stars in the world. So, like, similar to that vein, whenever she gets her movie made, I guess.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be one.
Yeah, like, just give it time.
They're already teaching courses about, about her. I mean, separate topic, but yes, I totally understand. Yeah, I guess I just wanted a different perspective. Like, and also, like, it would have been nice to, like, see some side by side, like, at the end, like, show Bob Dylan that age, and show Timothée Chalamet side by side, or show us real footage of him at the festival, or show him, like, I think what was at the end of the movie, they were talking about him getting the Nobel Peace Prize. Like,
yes,
you're gonna tell me nobody has video of that? Like, we could have like, you could have showed us that title card and just showed the video in the background, and then I just felt like we would have appreciated him more. Like, it would have just brought me more into appreciating Bob Dylan. Like, I wanted more of him to fully understand him.
So I mean,
I felt incomplete.
That's a good way of putting it, because I'm trying to put my finger on exactly what was the issue. Like, if the movie looked good, the movie, the performances were fantastic. Yeah. Like, I was really drawn in every time Edward Norton was on the screen, and especially Monica Barbaro, who played Joan Baez. Like, she was incredible in her performance as well.
I agree.
And like, I feel like every time there was a musical number in there, I feel like that was when the moment I was able to connect through their lyrics. But that unfortunately has nothing to do with it does contribute to their performances, but what's actually being sung is the lyrics that was written from Bob Dylan. So it's more complimenting his music of how it stood the test of time. And his words still have a lot of weight to it, rather than the movie itself, because the movie itself was just choosing to play these songs at these specific moments. So like, the direction that was great, the editing was great, the performances were great, but yet I'm still walking out of it, like you said, incomplete. So something was there that was making me not fully immersed into the story you were trying to tell.
I mean, I will say the production design and the makeup and costuming was
Mm-hmm.
like absolutely on point. I mean, you can see it right here on the poster. I mean,
Yeah.
they look fantastic. I mean, even to the point when you're in the festival, I think just the way that it's painted. See, what would have been nice
Yeah.
is a side by side, because then I could have compared. They were showing somebody with the film camera, so that means that there's video of this somewhere, if it's still alive or if it's still out there. So what would have been nice is like at the end to see a side by side, like, oh look, or here just show like footage of like how the '65 festival was, or showing Bob Dylan on stage. It would have been nice to have that comparison, but it seems like it was authentic. Like even when they were at the festival, they were showing the guy on the camera. He had like an older model camera that looked to be from that era. So it just seems as if, I mean, but James Mangold is a master at this. It just really
does.
bringing us into the time period through all the elements.
Now, let me ask you this question.
Okay.
Do you feel, because Oppenheimer, like I just explained, I saw the movie. I didn't quite understand every aspect of it, but I really enjoyed what Christopher Nolan brought to it. I was able to do some research. I went back and watched the movie, had a better appreciation for it. Do you see yourself going down the same line? Did you enjoy this movie enough for its other aspects for you to want to do potentially a little research more to understand what the story was trying to dive into, then watch it again in hopes of having a better appreciation for it?
No, because I feel as if what they gave me was incomplete, and I had to go and do my own research to just learn more about him. So I don't feel like I would learn anything more on a second viewing. It would be more just to appreciate the performance of Timothée Chalamet.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I think also, was he wearing a prosthetic nose?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. It definitely looked it. I couldn't tell, even in this poster right now. I couldn't tell. It doesn't look like he is, but I feel like there were at times where he was or wasn't. But yeah, and then also like obviously they were kind of giving like Bob Dylan was kind of like an asshole. Like like you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, maybe that's his personality, but there were moments, especially with his, infidelity and the love triangle that he was going about. It was like he was like, it looks like he had a thing for Sylvie, I believe her name was.
The other, yes.
Yeah, so Sylvie played by Elle Fanning. And so obviously, like, it looks like there was a romance there, but it never felt like that he really connected with her. And then as soon as she left and the world seem to be, looks like it was ending due to the Cuban Missile Crisis, Joan immediately kind of approached him at first, and then they had sex, and then it looks like they continued to have this affair throughout multiple years. We only saw 2 occasions of it. But it looks like that they had like an on and off relationship throughout, and that's maybe potentially one of the reasons why him and Sylvie didn't work out, especially toward the end, obviously. But like, I also felt like that love triangle wasn't necessarily fully developed either, because I didn't get any personality from Bob Dylan to make it as if he even cared about Sylvie and even cared about Joan.
Yeah. But maybe that was the point, because they talk about their contentious relationship with him and Joan Baez, and how she wrote I think, was it the title cards at the end that he wrote a song?
Yes.
She wrote a song about their relationship, or maybe I read that, online. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if there was. I don't know if there was a book or not. I mean, I'm sure there is. I mean,
no,
Bob Dylan.
I thought I read somewhere, or at the end of the movie they tell you about how later on she writes a song about their contentious relationship. I might have read that.
Oh, I see.
That might have been one of the things that I researched afterwards, because I was just curious on like other things that happened, like, and just like who these people are.
Right. Yeah, and again, it just felt like that, because I wasn't getting much personality from Bob Dylan. I felt like there was another disconnect for the relationships that he was having, and also in a way it also felt like there was a disrespect to like his upbringing, like what made his career. But at the same time, which they did kind of express this duality a little bit of like, yeah, these people brought me up in the folk music, but I want to do something new, and I shouldn't have to hold myself back just to appease them.
Yeah.
And that is something that the movie explores a little bit as he's, quote, like seeking artistic freedom. And like as an artist, he wants to do this, but everyone else is telling him just stick to the folk stuff. You don't need to go into rock. And technically, at the end of the day, as the movie kind of as we know about his career, like it looks like Bob Dylan wins creatively, musically. Like he got that forward, and he was able to do what he wants to do with, experimenting and successfully producing his own style of music that he wants to produce, but at the cost of the people that he potentially cared about, but especially for the people who cared about him.
And people are just so extra. People getting that mad at a folk festival, just fucking go home. Why has it got to turn into a fucking riot? Like, calm down.
Yeah.
Oh, he's using an electric guitar. What is the word? Oh, that's the devil's music. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like,
yeah, you know what? You're not wrong. There was a little sense of like people are rioting over because he decided to change the tune. Like even the people who are running the festival is like, oh, he done did it. Oh, hell no. He done play the electric guitar. He's like, Edward Norton had an axe. He was ready to just pull the plug.
What the fuck is that? Like, did that, like, I don't know. That's kind of crazy. This guy who helped bring him up, like, he gets him to this point, and then, like, he gets him to this stage, and he surpasses him in fame. And then because he doesn't do what he wants to do, he's gonna like destroy him singing, like him performing. Like, why would you do that? Like, I don't know. Like, who are you? Like, what the fuck is that?
That's an interesting point, because even in the kind of the lead up to it, they were kind of using him, and we saw that when he went to go, I guess, visit them at a party. And they're like, hey, Dylan, hey, Bob, they're all expecting you to sing. And he's like, what am I, a fucking puppet? Like, I'm just going to,
See, and
you know what I mean?
See, that was the one moment where I felt like I was, like, really with him. Because, like, I totally get it. Like, bitch, I'm not, like, I'm on break. Like, I'm not on the clock right now. I'm not your, like, you can't just, like, I'm not a wind-up doll. You can't just wind me up when you want me to sing. Like, that, like, to me, like, I totally understood that aspect of where he was coming from. And, like, you're there to perform for these puppets or these shills. And, like, he just wants to make his music. And I want to perform when I want to perform. Like, but I don't know. Like, I don't know. That was the one part that I thought was really interesting, that actually kind of resonated with me. Like, I totally understood where he was coming from and why he was so upset. But then, like, he was with this random girl. Like, who's this girl?
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Where'd she come from? And then we never saw her again.
Yeah, it was just random girl, and then she was like, "I love you," and he goes, "Yeah,
everybody loves me. I'm Bob Dylan."
No, Bob, whatever. It's like, "Don't you love me?" It's like, "No,
I don't actually."
And then, you understand him, and then he's a complete asshole. Like shortly after, and then he's being like this Mr. Cool guy, like toward the end of the movie, driving up to Sylvie and was like, "Hey, we're about to go to this festival. You want to hop on my motorcycle? I'm Mr. Cool guy.
Go, baby. Get on my boat. Get on my bike. Let's go."
And then, like, you can see that she's feeling these emotions again as he's performing with Joan, and then it's like she couldn't handle it, and then she left, and like I feel like her leaving was the only one of the real times I actually felt the connection between them two and their relationship. I never felt that he had a serious relationship with Joan. I think he just saw it as like a good musical partnership that I can have fun with on the side.
Yeah.
And that I think if he took it seriously, maybe they could have sprung into a relationship. And you can tell that she actually cared about Bob Dylan, but I didn't feel it the same way going from him to her, especially when they were on tour together. And he was just being an asshole. It's like, nah, man, I don't want to play that song. It's like, everyone wants to hear the song, Bob.
Nah, John. Like, no, don't play that. Let's play something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a real asshole moment. Like, damn.
Yeah.
Like, but I guess one of those moments where, like, he made it clear that he didn't want to do that, but then, like, there's this notion of, like, well, you kind of have to give the people what they want. But then at the same point, like, he just wants to explore his sound the way he wants to explore it. He wants to be a creative. He wants to do what he wants. He doesn't want to be the puppet for not even his audience, apparently. I guess that's kind of what that scene showed us. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. And also, like, even I feel like even that transition of him rising to fame and then him wanting to transition with his music wasn't as smooth as I wanted it to be either. I feel like that, like, I was kind of playing catch up with him, like, because he was just such an asshole. Like, within the assholeness, he was trying to prove a point that, like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. But to me, I was just focusing on you being an asshole. And then all of a sudden, he's like in the recording studio playing with guitars. I didn't realize that at that moment he was experimenting with new music. I thought it was just like a transition that I didn't realize that it was like a transition between folk and rock. I was like, okay, this is just the next song he's doing. And then to your point, toward the end of the movie, where it's like, and then like, boo,
throwing
like,
shit, fighting.
Yeah, I was
like, what is happening,
with
people?
Yeah, I didn't realize it was something serious until like Ed Norton was like gonna have a talk with him in the hotel room. It was like, hey, Bobby, we're just playing the good stuff tonight,
Yeah,
right? Just one night.
We're just friends. We're gonna sit here and have a conversation. And listen, I brought you some coffee so you can go ahead and wake up. Yeah, I just think you should give the people what they want, Bobby.
Pretty good. We're gonna continue to use that.
It was just something about his cadence and the way he was talking that I was just like I was like,
especially him in the radio, like in the TV show, which I had no idea he was in the radio show. Hello, everybody. For those who were expecting Bobby this evening, he just won't be here today. He's just a little busy. Instead, we found this random jazz player on the street.
But you know what? And I meant to. And here's another moment where, like, I wish, and I wanted to go look it up afterwards because I figured if they were recording it, that clip must live online somewhere. Like, I would love to have watched that clip in real life, like at the end. Like, I would have loved like a little roll at the end of just like while the credits are rolling and show some of these old videos of like him on that TV show, him at the festival, him during that time period. Like, I don't know. I just wanted to be enthralled more into the moment than what they gave us.
Yeah, definitely there is a disconnect there. But I also like when he was like Bob Dylan eventually shoved like, oh, hey, Bobby, come join us and my new friend here. And then he was like, you're not trying to upstage me. Like, this guy had no idea who Bob Dylan was.
He goes,
and he didn't give a shit.
when he's like, you want a drink? He's like, nah, I'm working. He's like, okay. Let's play.
Yeah, it's so weird. He almost felt like he was like hosting a similar show like Mr. Rogers, where he's teaching people the folk music.
Yes.
It's just so weird. But yeah, I like this movie had its moments.
Yeah.
I think overall, like you were saying, like everything surrounding the movie just feels like, yeah, this feels on par. Performances, direction, like the movie looks great. The music is great. It's just like there's something missing. There's a disconnect that doesn't get me fully invested as much as I wanted to. Because there are moments where I was like, again, like I don't know what the movie's end goal is. But again, upon reflecting on it, I can see what they were going with. And it clearly is just about an artist ahead of its time, which quite honestly, it's not something we haven't seen before with these musical biopics. That's part of the musical biopic nature of it. Obviously, these musicians are special, and they were able to change history within their respective genres. And I wonder if this movie would have been a little bit better if it was an overview. A lot of movies like Elvis. Elvis was an overview film about his career from start to finish. So like this movie decided to like pinpoint a specific moment in time. But I wonder if it would have hold a little bit more weight if we got the beginning and end of his career. And he's still alive, obviously. Yeah. Pretty sure.
I wonder.
Yeah.
But I'm sure like this won't be the last one. I'm sure there'll probably be more to come soon enough. Because I mean, how many Elvis movies do we have? You know?
That's true. Yeah, there's a bunch.
So I mean, if the intrigue is there, there's a lot to appreciate and explore.
Yeah, Bob Dylan is still alive. I would just have to double check. He is definitely still alive. But yeah, I mean, we're born 1942, so he's definitely up there in age. But yeah, I think overall, I think like the to share this sentiment. Actually, before we go into our final thoughts, let's talk about the box office.
Oh yeah.
The movie had a budget of anywhere between $50 to $70 million, and at the time of recording, we have. Hold
on, I got it. Give me a second. I got it right here.
Yeah. This movie came out on Christmas Day, so it was definitely a Christmas Day release. Like I said, this movie had a budget around between $50 to $70 million. And this movie wasn't expected to make big waves, but it looks like it's a decent change, maybe breaking even, not entirely sure. But domestically, it made $63.8 million. Internationally, it made $11.2 million, which kind of makes sense because Bob Dylan is known as for an American artist, so that checks out. Not a huge fan base internationally, most likely, with a grand total of $75 million. So it looks like, not taking account of marketing, it probably just met its budget of, at the $75 million mark worldwide. And then with that, it's definitely getting a lot of Oscar buzz. And I don't know if I think it's available to watch at home. Like, you can watch it on video on demand right now. So maybe it's doing better on that market. Mm-hmm. Just double checking on that as well, because I honestly don't remember seeing it. No. Wow. Okay, so it's only available in theaters. Yeah, it's still only in theaters, so you can't even watch this movie at home yet. I'm sure with all the Oscar nominations, that's going to change very quickly.
True.
So like maybe it can get some revenue into the rental VOD market once that kind of rolls out. But actually, that's quite surprising, especially for Searchlight, which is owned by Disney. You would think that after we're coming in on a month of this movie's release, or if not more than that, actually, yeah, more than a month of this movie's release, you would think with a movie like this, it would already be available to watch at home, because this isn't demanding to be viewed in the theaters, unless you're kind of predicating on the fact that this movie is about Bob Dylan and Timothée Chalamet is playing Bob Dylan. And for those of an older audience, do enjoy watching James Mangold films. Mm-hmm. I was that person as well. I love Ford v Ferrari, another movie that is one of the best movies I believe he's ever done. Arguably, Logan is also one of the best movies he's ever done, filling in the nerd market. But then he's produced probably one of the most disappointing films I've ever seen, which was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Like, I don't know how you can have hit after hit, and then you come out with A Complete Unknown, which is nominated for 8 Oscars, but the film you produced 2 years before that is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I don't understand it. I'm off my soapbox.
Okay.
I will go on a rant on that, of how much I do not understand how that transpired. I do not get it. But with that, anyway, like I was saying before, your final thoughts on A Complete Unknown?
I wanted more. I wanted more. I think there is a lot to appreciate from this film, just coming from cinematography, obviously the sound design, the production design, the makeup and hairstyling. I think that was all, as his movies typically are, those are always all on point. They were all really great. I just felt story structure wise, I was missing the main piece to make me care about Bob Dylan more. Like, I cared, but I felt like I could have cared more. Like, they could have given me more to like engulf me in who he is, was what it is as a creative. That's all. Yeah. So I think with that, I'm gonna give it. I'm floating between 3 and 3.5. I think I'm gonna go 3.
I was gonna say 3.5, but
I'll meet you at 3.5.
Like,
I'll meet you at 3.5.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of where I was at, because I did like a lot of aspects about this movie. Absolutely. Even as we were talking about it. It was that disconnect I feel like that was it. That's all we really needed.
Yeah.
Like, just something to hook us a little bit more than it already did.
I will say, just in regards to its nominations, I know we're going to talk main up, but at least in regards to specifically this movie, like, I don't see it for Best Picture. I think there are other, I don't see it for Best Picture. What are some of the other ones that it's nominated for?
So I'll go over them right now. Best Picture, obviously. Best Directing for James Mangold.
I can see it.
Best Performance by an Actor with Timothée Chalamet. Yeah,
absolutely.
Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role with Monica Barbaro, who played Joan. Yeah. I can 100% see that. Best performance by an actor in a supporting role, which is Edward Norton for Pete Seeger.
Well, I think we do see that. I think we saw that he did a good job.
Yes, definitely so. If you look over here, you can see all my nominations at the Oscars.
At one point, I was the
I feel
Hulk.
like that's not good. If you see here, when you see, I'm not typically mad anymore because you see when I get angry,
got my banjo. And I sing, "This land is your land, this land is mine." Okay, I'm done now. Okay, we can move.
This banjo helps me not transform into a green monster. So good. That's never gonna not leave my head.
No.
That is Edward Norton from here on out. So with that, deserves an nomination.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Best adapted screenplay. It's been nominated for, and best achievement in costume design, which I can also see as well. So it did not. I'm sorry, and one more, and best sound.
Sound I can see. Obviously, what was that other last one you said? Was that costuming? Costuming I can absolutely see. All the acting nominations I see. I think I'll even give it for directing, where I don't see it as best picture, unfortunately. And the best adapted screenplay. Like maybe it adapted. Now maybe it adapted the book faithfully, and that's where that nomination comes from. But I meant as far as for me to appreciate and like want to give this screenplay an award, unfortunately I don't agree.
Yeah, I definitely think it has a better shot in the acting categories, which we will dive into to see what else it's up against. But like when I finished this movie, the three standouts to me were Timothée Chalamet, Ed Norton, and Monica Barbio, and they're all nominated for their acting, and they're all nominated for their performances. So with that, I'm like, okay,
that I see.
Here we go. Yeah. Like that, I 100% see, and that's to me the strongest point about this movie. That's kind of where I land on it. But again, sharing the same sentiment, giving it 3.5 stars. A lot of stuff surrounding this movie is great, but there's just this disconnect that we had a hard time fully invested into watching this movie, and therefore, like, I wish I was able to get more out of it. And I think, to your point again, I think in some cases it is the movie's job to get us there in places the audience don't understand, without the expectation of you should already know who Bob Dylan is and some of the things that he has done in his career. Unfortunately, we are obviously a little bit younger, so this point in time we're in the 50s and the 60s, and obviously we were not alive during that time. So it's hard to connect, especially if we're not 100% familiar with his movie, with his music, and we are more familiar with his greatest hits. So with that, that is our spoiler review on A Complete Unknown. Again, this is not the last time we're going to be talking about this movie, as we are going to be diving into our Oscar talk a little bit later on to the show, as well as in future episodes when we kind of compare to see where this movie can maybe best chances of nabbing an Oscar win. At this point, we don't know if they're going to get a win here, but we'll see. That's up for discussion. Yeah, we'll see. All right, so our next spoiler review we have for you guys this week is, Ernesto?
We are reviewing The Brutalist, starring Adrien Brody, Felicity Jones, Guy Pearce, Joe Alwyn, written and directed by Brady Corbett, who directed Vox Lux, and also written by Mona Fastvold, who also wrote Vox Lux, a movie I've never heard of before.
It's a 2018 film starring Natalie Portman.
Okay. Have you seen it?
No.
No.
No. That movie looked a little bit too out of my wheelhouse, to say the least.
Well, I guess we'll start with you this time. What are your initial thoughts on The Brutalist?
Well, let's just take the elephant out of the room right now. The big glaring elephant out of the room. Okay, I just want to get that first out of my chest.
All 3.5 hours of it.
Okay, this movie has been nominated for 10 Academy Awards. It's more. We'll start there. This movie has been nominated for 10 Academy Awards. Right. I just want to get that number right. I'm pretty sure that is correct. And yes, The Brutalist is nominated for 10 Academy Awards, and it is right now the front runner for potentially winning Best Picture, given that as of right now, based on the information that we're getting, is that it won Best Picture at the Golden Globes, so that's already giving it an edge. As well, it's been nominated for various award shows under the Best Picture nomination. So this is definitely a clear front runner of potentially winning the Best Picture. That being said, this movie is 3.5 hours long. When you sign up to watch this movie, it is a commitment to half of your day.
Pretty much.
And this movie, which took me by surprise when Ernesto even told me this, because he watched the movie before I did, that within this 3.5 hour time frame, there is a 15-minute intermission.
Mm-hmm.
And before we talk about the movie, I want to talk about the intermission.
Okay.
Do you feel like it is? Well, one, do you feel like that was necessary? One, do you feel like this movie could have been 3 hours and 15 minutes without the intermission and just watch it straight through? And do you feel like or more movies should be doing this if the runtime is at a certain length? Do you? Because I feel like that's old school filmmaking. So bringing that intermission into the fold.
So I feel like there's a lot to unpack with what you just asked me. So let's start with, does this movie need to be 3.5 hours? No, it does not. This movie could have easily been I would even give it a solid 2.5, no intermission. Now, given that we were given a 3.5 hour movie, I was appreciative of the 15-minute intermission because it was nice to have that narrative break. There was a lot you took in, and it was right at the middle point. So like you literally watched like two movies essentially. Like and they brought you to like a good and natural stop point, but it was nice to have an hour and a half and then have that 15-minute break. I got to go get a snack. I got to go to the bathroom. I got to stretch my legs. I got to go outside. And then it also gave me a moment to kind of reflect on the first half of the film, so that I had a little bit of time to process like everything that had gotten us to this point, and I felt like I was ready. I was more ready going into the second half. So did it need to be 2.5 hours? Did it need to be 3.5? No. Given the 3.5 we were given us, I was appreciative of the intermission. And I think once movies hit a certain point, that maybe that should just be common practice. At a certain point, give us a natural intermission so that you can give your guests a chance to go to the bathroom. It's like going to the theater. You have Act 1 and Act 2. You got that time. Go get a drink. Go to the bathroom. Yeah. But then that way you can come back and not have to miss anything. So you don't feel like you have to wait till a slow part of the movie to get up. You can watch the entire thing without having to miss anything and not have to worry about like, oh, if I need a snack or if I need to go to the bathroom. These things, it just kind of shows like an appreciation for your patrons who are coming to watch your film. So I like it.
I wasn't mad at it either, because yes, the movie did feel like it was a natural stopping point in the film.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, this actually, because I was a little bit worried about the intermission. I was like, we could have cut the intermission. I would have, been able to go home 15 minutes earlier.
There's that too. There's that too. But then like you would have been pushing it would have been, I don't know, like you would have been fine because
pushing my bladder.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like not everybody, but then this opens it up to people who don't typically watch long movies, and it tells them like, oh, well, I at least get a break in the middle, so then we can go back and finish this thing, as opposed to like being forced to sit through 3 hours and 15 minutes of straight narrative, especially a movie like this.
Yes, this movie is dense.
Yes,
for sure.
And I think that it also helps when the subject material is so dense. It's helpful to have that break to kind of like really download everything and kind of resonate on everything that happens.
Yeah, and I again, at the end of the day, like I was quite shocked by it, but that to me, amongst other big things about this movie, that was the biggest thing I took away from it, was like, oh, there's an intermission. Okay, this makes my viewing experience a little bit better. Like you said, I went to go use the bathroom. I got a snack. I walked outside so I get some sun. Like I set a timer on my watch so I knew I wasn't going to be missing anything. And like it felt it just felt natural. Like it just felt like a kind of a breath of fresh air, so to speak, of like, okay, I'm in here for the long haul. But at the same time, it's like the movie understands that we are human beings who, who are taking time out of our day to watch a 3.5-hour movie. I feel like it's almost in the sense of the least you could do is give us an intermission to go use the bathroom so we feel like we're not missing anything.
Yeah.
But then the question comes, where does that intermission, like if this is going to be new common practice, do you just make your movie shorter? And do you leave your longer cuts to the, to like maybe like famously in the director's cut or in deleted scenes, or kind of pushing people to go watch a longer version of your movie at home, which seems to be the standard nowadays? Or is 2.5 hours like starting to push it? Like once you pass 2.5 hours, do you start including the intermission that feels natural in your movies? Like I feel like that's even a conversation to be had there as well.
I think for me, if you're starting to push 3, you might as well just go to 3 and give us an intermission in the middle. Like find a good natural point in the middle and give us an intermission. I think it's helpful to the patrons. But like I think it depends on the material, because you have to have enough material there to warrant for me to sit there for 3 hours. Like, don't give me 3 hours of garbage just to give me an intermission. Like, it needs to be a dense movie. It can't be Madam Web.
There's also the sense that, like, I remember a lot of people, because they know a lot of people are going to go watch this movie. It's one of the highest grossing movies of all time, Avengers Endgame, which had a 3-hour mark on it. And I remember reading that they debated on even including an intermission or trying to make it shorter. But, the Russo brothers was pretty determined on this was the length that we want. This is the movie we want to tell. And like people were preparing for a 3-hour venture into this. But I wonder if that movie would have changed at all if there was an intermission embedded into the Avengers final act at that moment. And I think now thinking about it, there were probably many moments where you could have put an intermission in there if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Where I feel like it would have been fine. Especially, honestly, the first scene that pops up is when they first time travel. Like, you could easily have like an intermission where like they decide that they're about to time travel, they go on their separate ways, and then you pause the movie right there to then continue it for the next act.
Yeah, like you can like have them do the thing where they go down, and you can do just do streams of light, and like as they're going through time, you can put a 15-minute timer and just put intermission.
Yeah. That
put some epic music, put a score, a nice little an interlude, 15-minute interlude music in there, and that would have been
just fun. The Avengers theme on repeat, like da da
True.
da da.
Yeah, actually.
Da, 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 da. Just have Alan Silvestri write a 15-minute score for the intermission.
You could just find a natural loop point. Find a natural point where it just smoothly loops into the back over all over again.
Or you can even be going a step further. You know the end credit scene where Captain America, I think it's at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming, where Captain America like comes in and is like, so let's talk about patience. We can have Captain America come in with the intermission and just talk with so you decided to stay.
Oh, that's funny.
That's nice.
That's funny. That's really good.
During this next 15 minutes, we're going to talk about something, whatever. But either way, but yeah, I just felt like the idea of bringing back the intermission was kind of almost refreshing in a way.
Yeah.
So that part of it, I was like, oh, you know what? After experiencing this, we can bring this back. And like you said, the theaters do it, like Broadway style, like plays do it. Why can't movies do the same if it hits a certain runtime? That being said, let's talk about the actual movie itself. And like we mentioned before, this movie is dense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of material, a lot that's going on in this movie. But I think and I had to do some research. Like upon initial viewing, there was a lot of aspects that I enjoyed about this movie. Right off the bat, you had like these crazy credits that I was like, oh, what's going on here? It was like going up diagonally and everything. I was like, or was it going like to the side?
I don't remember. Oh, it was going across when they were driving. when he was going
Yes.
after he made it to America. Even the whole opening scene is just, it was very chaotic of him trying to get to America. Like, you didn't even realize that he's on a boat going to America. You're listening to this voiceover of his wife writing him a letter. And then you finally see, like, he made it to America. They made it. They immigrated. They made it over here. But then, but then we revisit that letter. The exact same letter we have repeated back to us. Like, we don't need to do that. He could just open the letter. We already heard it. We already know what this thing says. Like, why are we listening to it again? Like, you could have him. You could just show it, the cursive on the page, and him open it, and you could have faded to another scene. Like, why are we listening to this thing all over again?
But also, like, it's so funny because, again, knowing it's runtime, they have, like, you know, the bus scene where he's like hop on the bus after and then we see the credits. And it's like, well, that could have saved 5 minutes right there.
There's a lot of those moments. There's quite a few of those moments in there.
but also, like, the score, though, for me, that's another thing that kind of sticks out, especially toward the beginning, because it kind of just, like, for me, it kind of wakes you up. It's like, it's super and
loud.
you're like, whoa. Holy shit. Hello. Welcome to America. I get it.
America.
America. And so, like, there's a lot, but then the movie, honestly, I'm going to be honest. I was on board with this movie up until the last hour. That's where it started to lose me. It is the last hour of the movie, but I was pretty much keeping up with it. Okay. I was like, all right, immigrant story. I get it. America. Not a great place. He's trying. He's working on it.
Everybody hates
He's an architect. Everyone hates it. He's an architect. Okay, building, architecture, beautiful. Get it. Got it. Like, I was able to follow along with it. And Adrien Brody, incredible in this movie. I feel like this movie is also a showcase of its actors. Like Guy Pearce, Felicity Jones, Adrien Brody, all nailed it.
Fantastic.
And Felicity Jones came in halfway through the movie. She came in immediately after the intermission.
Yep.
And she owned the scenes that that she was in. And even, I think I was reading an interview with the director saying that the first half of the movie, she was kind of like a ghost, like this figure that, like, what was scared, like Adrien Brody's character wanted, like, he wanted his wife back. And then throughout the process of him, you know, getting in with Guy Pearce, and he was coming for money, was able to get his family to America. And now that was like the goal. And now what happens when they're finally in America? And that was basically the whole movie. It's like when, like, this immigrant story of, and again, this is me kind of doing the research for it. I didn't get this in my initial viewing. What I'm basically spitting out is what I researched, and what I was able to take from it was that most stories and some of the immigrant stories is about the American dream. This movie is about the American myth of, like, maybe not every dream is going to become a reality, or you think that coming to America is going to be a great life-changing experience, and then the opposite happens. Like, your dreams were not a reality, your expectations is not what it was, and in actuality, you were probably better off just staying where you were rather than trying to chase this American dream.
And I totally get that, especially with the whole theme of them starting in America, and then obviously they all eventually end up back to they end up moving to Jerusalem as how it ends up in the end of the film. But I also think that there was this line of, like, the rich and kind of the social status and how they treat certain people, and like how certain rich people will do nice things for you, but it's just so that they can feel better about themselves. And, like, this whole theme of them tolerating him after he's, like, constructing these beautiful things, like, and then he builds Guy Pearce's character. He builds him this beautiful library, kicks him out, and then it wasn't until that he had social recognition from his crowd that he wanted to invite him back and bring him into the fold to do more work for him, and understood him as an artist, but, like, completely wrote him off when he first saw him. But once he saw that he can extract his value from him, then he served the purpose to be with him.
And then Guy favor. It's like, oh, I'm, you know, again, kind of that social status, that power that he probably wanted, that we saw throughout the movie, is like, oh, I have power over him. I'm going to give him everything he wants. I'm going to give him a better life. I'm going to bring his family back over, as like all in an effort of giving me this building that's going to be for the community. That
and there's some truth, and there's some truth to that. There's some truth to him. Like, yeah, it is a great thing that you're giving him this job. You've asked him to create this thing, and that in itself is creating jobs. Once this thing's open, it's going to create jobs. So like you're changing people's lives and for the positive in doing this thing, but you're not doing it for the correct reasons. So and I think that evilness is, for lack of a better term, kind of seeps into like how he treats him and how he treats other people, and how everything with the outcome of the project, I think, is totally tied to his non-altruistic reasonings for wanting him to build this thing. It was really for his own self-satisfaction, just to spend money. We saw these people, they just spend money to spend money. Like, it doesn't matter. They tolerate everybody else because they think that they own the world. At least that was kind of like my takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, the rich get richer, right? And then like some
the
people,
rich eat the poor.
Yeah, seriously. And then obviously he was taking advantage of him, but at the same time, you see Adrien Brody going after an artistic dream that he had.
Yes.
And I feel like you saw those two things battling each other, and you see how it was affecting him going to like, I want this building to be made. Like, I want to build this. I want to do it my way. And he was going as far as willing to forego the salary that he was getting to make sure this project came to be, and ultimately becoming one of his downfalls of like this artistic integrity, like this vision that he has in his head. Like, he needs to put it out there in the world. Like, this is his mark that he's putting to America, yet it never became what it was supposed to be.
But did it? Because in the end, we see that they renown him for all the things that he's done, given all the bullshit he came through. Nobody's talking about that guy. They're talking about him and like all the details, the space, the distance between the two camps, and like the whole reasoning for having that cross. And like he didn't want to forego any of his artistic vision. And he even talks about how his buildings during World War II, his buildings were the only things that were still standing. So there is something to giving sacrifice for your artistic vision. Like, I totally understood. Like, wanting to make sure like this doesn't matter, because like in 100 years, my vision will still be here, and then the money will be something that's forgotten, but my mark will still be here on this world, even though I'm gone. I think there was an element of him like trying to bring the permanence to his artistry. I think and there's something that I really there's a lot of conversely from A Complete Unknown. Like, I think that the writing in this movie was on point. It was just so long, but there is a lot to appreciate within this film. Like, the themes were strong, the writings were strong, the way the actors portrayed the way Adrien Brody and Guy Pearce and Felicity Jones portrayed their characters really like engulfed you into this narrative. Like, I was on board. Like, I was fully invested. It was just long.
Yeah, I feel like the runtime really bogged it down. Like, if it was a little bit more concentrated, and like even with this, I'm even saying like give us a 3-hour movie, and I think it would have been stronger for it. Like, I'm not
3
even
hours
trying to
3 hours no intermission.
3 hours no intermission. I think I would have tolerated more. I think it would have held more weight. Like the themes would have held a little bit stronger. I think eventually it just went on for too long for it to like hold me toward the end. But nothing of what you said was untrue. Like, this movie explores so many themes, and then this movie was told into 3 parts for the most part. Yeah, I think you had your for the most part
in acts. It was 3 acts and an epilogue. So part 1 was the enigma of arrival. Part 2 was the hardcore of beauty. It's 2 acts and an epilogue, and then the epilogue is the first architecture finale.
Okay. And then the part 1 took place between 1947 and 1952, followed by the second part was in 1953 to 1962, and the epilogue, I believe they said it was in around 1980. Like, even focusing on part 1, we see him coming to America. We see him like within the transition, he goes to New York. He sleeps with a prostitute for the night. He hops on a bus. The crazy credits happen, and then he visits, I believe, his cousin.
Yes.
It's his cousin, yeah. And so then
or her cousin, or was it her cousin?
Like somebody's cousin. It was a family member that he went to go visit. He's like, "Hey, I'm here to help you get on your feet. If you don't mind, you'd be staying in here in the showroom and
it's
all
his
that
cousin.
stuff."
It's
his cousin. Okay. And then even that has its own level of themes that he was brought to it. Like you can even see, like he's like, look at me, look at my look at my business. I'm doing great things over here. And go ahead.
Well, I was it just gave me a light bulb how we were talking about the kind of the comparison. So I wonder, like, if his is the enigma of what the American myth of the enigma of Arrival is. Like he sees his cousin as the American dream because he's made it.
Yes.
He's got this wife. He's got this store. He runs his own business. So to him, he looks at him as like, oh well, like it is something that is achievable. Like this is something that if I work hard, then I can get to the level that he's at. But I think in that learning who they are as people and where he is and like this relationship and his weird ass wife, like I think that's when he realizes that he didn't want that this is something that he didn't want. Like, cause even when he kicks him out, it was really strange that the camera wise they never showed his cousin's face. They never showed his face. He's sitting on the bed, even when he's in the hallway, when he's talking about how he made moves on his wife, and it's really his wife who just manipulated the situation because she didn't want to deal with his, and maybe she was racist. Like she didn't want to deal with his, his cousin who like has a really thick accent and has this Hungarian last name, and like that seems very un-American, whereas his cousin has basically converted to being an American because he's no longer. Did he say he was no longer Jewish? He changed his name to be Miller, to be his wife's last name. So it's almost like he completely forgoed his ethnic background and just engulfed himself into his wife's family, as opposed to the merging of the two cultures together. He just took on her culture. Yeah,
and it's hard to tell exactly. Like she could have been racist. She just or could have just not want him anymore, but. I don't even think that she was making moves on him. I think she just straight up lied.
Yeah.
Like
no, she just wanted to get him out of there.
Exactly. I was just like, he's like, oh, he made a pass on me. He's like, he never once. Like you guys were drunk and you're pushing your cousin to go dance with your wife. He's like, no, I'm good. He's like, no, go dance with my wife. She's a beautiful lady. Go dance with her. And then like they danced. He's like, oh, you made a pass on my wife. I don't think that's correlated exactly, but. I'm sure the wife was like, look, you made us dance. Now he's trying to put moves on me later on. I'm not feeling comfortable about this. And then he goes, look, you can even see it before then, too, in the middle of all that, where like they came, I think it was shortly after the party. And she was like, you missed the toilet. But then she was like, well, I guess the sink is better than the floor. And then like she almost sees him like an animal. It's like, what are you doing? Using the bathroom in the sink or in the tub? Like, you're disgusting. You shouldn't even belong here. Why are you still here? Like, weren't you supposed to be looking for a new place? Like, all that stuff. It's like, you can tell that she just felt uncomfortable with him being around. And then she came up with this lie to get him out. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I say in the midst of like what happened with the job that he was hired to do in addition to that. So, but I'll get to that in a second.
I wonder if it's also the same sentiment of like the rich helping the poor, but then wanting him, like realizing he's like, all right, well, I helped you. Like, you should be gone by now. Like,
right.
Like, I wonder if there was that element to kind of the same element with Guy Pearce's character. I wonder if it was the same thing of like, he wanted him to get out. He wanted him to get out of here as soon as possible. He didn't really want him to stick around for as long as he stick around, especially after the whole, and Guy Pearce's character is called Harrison Lee Van Buren. After the whole debacle at Harrison's house where they kicked him out and they shattered that glass dome of his roof. And,
right.
And then they didn't get paid, so he cost them money. But like my question was, his cousin didn't reach out to him after they got paid, and he tried to reach out to him. At no point he didn't try to like. Like, that would have been a point to try to bring him back into the fold. To me, that was just showing that they didn't really want him to begin with. They just, like, he was doing it probably because it was perceiving that that's what you should do. Like, you should help your cousin when he comes and immigrates to this country and get him on his feet, and then try to send him on his way as quick as possible, as opposed to like genuinely wanting to help him.
Yeah, and then also he gave him a job. Is like, hey, he's an architect. He's a brilliant architect, and like, you should come help me on this project. And obviously, Harry Lee, who's played by Joe Alwyn, he came into play. It's like, hey, I want to surprise my dad with a new library, and he's coming in with this artistic vision of how it should look, and he's like, we have to go under budget. I want this to be the budget. He's like, this is your new budget. And he goes, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I can do that. We have all the money in the world. And like, he was excited. Like, oh my God, he just upselled this guy. He's like, no, I just thought what was right for everybody. Like, he was approaching about this differently. But once things went south, like they broke the chandelier, in addition to Guy Pearce is not liking surprises, and was like, what the hell is all these people doing in my house? Which I completely understand. Like, you didn't expect all this to be changing. Then he goes in, and like, once things started going south, like him making a pass on his wife, even though it was a lie, was like, okay, that's it. Like, you ruined my business. You ruined, you're making passes on my wife. You got to move. You got to leave. And then that transitions to, it looks like a couple of years had passed, and he's, on the streets working at a construction site. Yeah. Eventually shoving coal. And then eventually Guy Pearce, Harrison Lee Von Buren Sr., finds him working the construction site. And I think one of the more, probably to me, I took it as like the fire that kind of lit his creative spark again, because you can tell that he had a little bit of it, and then he got bogged down by working at the construction site, living in the streets, looks like in a some sort of like homeless facility, and he gets approached. He's like, these are your buildings, right? Like, you built this, and you can see, like, he even asked, like, can I keep these photos? Like, he's like, oh my God, I haven't seen them since I built them. Like, you can tell he was getting emotional by these. Like, he even had these photos that he can go back and look at, and you can see that artistic spark kind of was reignited at that moment. We're like, oh my God, like, this is my life's work. And then you have this guy, this rich millionaire, coming in and presenting an opportunity. Well, he didn't know that, but later eventually presenting an opportunity to build something grand. He's like, of course I'm going to take him up on his opportunity, on top of him giving me a place to stay where I wasn't staying anywhere. And that's kind of more or less, going into the end of Act 1, or Part 1, where he's having these deep discussions with Guy Pearce about, like, even like, Guy Pearce's upbringings, on how he told this very long-winded story that he got interrupted by the guy who wanted to talk to him, and he's like, can't you tell that I'm having this conversation with my friend? He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then he goes into like this 20-minute dialogue of the story with his grandmother and the check that he didn't cash or whatever. And then it was almost like he was trying to build some sort of respect between him and Adrien Brody, to be like, I'm going to convince him to want to build this building for me.
I also thought it was interesting when he was telling that story that it all ended with him saying that, once they started whining, and like how he immediately like looked like that to him, that was his point, to look at them like trash. He's like, once you become this groveling person, like, it's just very unbecoming. And we see that play out when, after maybe was it the train crash, when they were making the final decision to cut it, he's Adrien Brody's character, I forget his name, Laszlo. He starts begging him, and he's like screaming at him in front of all these people. He's like, you're begging. It's unbecoming of you.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was like a call, to me, it was a callback to that moment where, like, that way, that he just treats everybody. There's a dollar value assigned to everybody. Like, he doesn't care.
I think you slowly started to see his true nature, because there was almost an excuse. Like, I think we saw his initial true nature at the very beginning of the movie, where he kind of lashed out, and then he was like, I had a lot going on. my mother just passed away, but I really do appreciate what you did to my library. I want you to come to my house for this party. And then making this, this announcement is like, you can come and I want to make this building. I make everyone climb this mountain to show you where this building is going to be housed. And I want you to do it. I want Laszlo. I want you to make this building, and you can live with me, and everything's going to be great. And we're going to have a great time building this monument for the community that people can come and visit and have a good time. This community center. And like, you can see a lot of people like, whoa, especially the son. They're like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? He's like, no, this is going to be great. And I think that was him. Like, it seemed like everything was going nice. And then eventually you slowly see his true colors, especially toward like closer to the end of the movie, where I think for me, this was a very unnecessary scene. They're going to find marble in Italy, and this has to be this type of marble. And he was almost like expressing his dominance that he has on Laszlo, and then takes him down this backwards alley in the midst of this club in Italy and sexually assaulted him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what is happening right now? And he was almost like physically pronouncing his dominance on him. It's like, yeah, you obey me now, you're the dog, and all this stuff. And I don't know, I just felt, for me, it was very off-putting. And obviously there was a point to it, maybe showcasing his true nature, but it never felt like something that, like, it just felt unnecessary to put in the movie, given it's also giving its runtime.
Yeah, it did seem kind of weird, like, calling him a social leech, I think is what he called them. He's like, you people invite your own persecution. Like, that's some pretty horrific shit to say to somebody who just went through the Holocaust. Like, who the fuck are you? Like, are you a Nazi? Seriously. Like, that's what that tells me. But I mean, I understand why they were trying to showcase. They're trying to showcase that this is ultimate. This is really who he is. He's just this domineering person who thinks that he's in control of everybody because he has all this money, and that everybody who's under his pay, they work for him, and nothing else matters. That they're dogs waiting for his beckoning call to do his bidding. And I think that was his way. And it almost like he was. But I think he was jealous. He was jealous of Laszlo.
I think so too. Yeah.
Because of how artistic he was. Because he did make it a mention about how he appreciates his work, and I do think that was true. I mean, he has all these first editions books, so he is somebody who is an appreciator of art, is what I gather. And I think, like, that's the one thing he could not take away from him. Like, he couldn't take away his artistry from him, but he could assault him in that way and dominate him, so that it doesn't matter if he can, because he has this massive power over him because of how jealous he is of how much more he has just a different level of intellect than Harrison has.
Yeah, and then that even goes even further of, like, there were multiple moments where Laszlo could have gotten out of a situation. Like, he didn't have to put his money into this building, into this project. He didn't have to like, he was unwilling to make sacrifices for this project. He got let go, and then he was probably living, a nice, healthy life shortly, when he got let go. And then all of a sudden, Harrison Lee Von Buren was able to work out something with the insurance after the train crash, and then wanted to bring him back on the project, and Laszlo couldn't say no to it. So, like, he then brings himself back into the fold and researching the marble, and, like, it's in the sense. And then also you can see he was making him sick. He was lashing out at people. His wife was even telling him to calm down, even yelling at his friends. And at the end of the day, it's to what cost are you willing to make sacrifices for your well-being, your people that are surrounding you, as well as like, financially, mentally, physically, like, how much you're willing to sacrifice to do this. And I think the building is just a representation of that artistic sacrifice that he was willing to do at the cost of literally everything pertaining in his life.
No, yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
And I feel like that's, going back to, again, the American myth, and you even mentioned it before, they ended up just going back to Jerusalem. And his wife, given everything that was happening in this movie, was a no bullshits person. Like, she was reading them like a fucking book. It's like, nope.
I think she noticed them as soon as she got there. Like,
Yes.
she noticed like the way that they were talking to him, and I think they mentioned her pastime as a journalist. I think is what, like, she's already known and met people like this. So I think she had them figured out as soon as she got there.
Yeah, and also, like, she was ready to go to work. It's like, yeah, I can go to work. I can work anywhere. Like, I can do this anything. Like she was ready to just, even though she had some sort of illness to her, she wanted to just immediately go in there and start contributing to this American dream. There's also many points even in this where they resorted to, like, he was a drug addict. And so what sacrifices that he was willing to do even at that moment, and even to the point where he gave his wife drugs because she was having some sort of seizure or
from her osteoporosis, and she was out of her medicine, so he wanted to give her heroin. And I think they all, like Harrison, I think they knew that he was a heroin addict. Mm-hmm. And I think they obviously used that to their advantage. Like, even the foreman who he was working with, he's like, "Are you late again?" He's like, "You got 5 minutes. I'll give you 5 minutes if you go shower." Like, almost like he expected, like, this is like common practice for him to be drugged out.
And then within that process, I guess she was taking notes because her husband confessed something to her, and then she immediately walked over to the Harrison family household and in front of everyone said that you sexually assaulted my husband. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, once he left the dining room table, we never saw Harrison again for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I read, and I vaguely remember hearing it in the film where they run away and they go to the center, and when they're in the center, you hear somebody say, "Oh, we found something." So I think it's assumed that he went in there and committed suicide.
Oh, I did not pick that up at all from that.
But that was a weird scene. Like,
it was.
Like, she's threatening him, he disappears, and then his son drags this woman off of her walker and drags her out, and everybody's like, "Well, I think we'll go." Like, nobody else has any other reaction to this poor woman being kicked off of her walker and thrown and dragged on the floor. It's like, okay. Like, what are we doing here?
Again, this is where the movie it's kind of chewing a little too long. It's extending its runtime to a large degree and kind of loosening the impact a little bit from everything that was going on in this movie. And then again, we kind of take it home with, like, people kind of recognize him for his work years later, and not really, we see that process that he went through, but they would never understand it. They just see the work that he put into it. And ultimately, I don't think the building was ever functional.
I don't remember. I thought it eventually opened.
I don't think it ever did. I think it was just like this multi-million-dollar project that never amounted to anything. And that one could be a symbol of the American dream, so to speak, like the American myth. It's like you put all this time and effort into going into a shell of a place. I don't believe it ever came to fruition. Like, I mean, the building was finished, but I don't think it ever, I don't think it was ever open to the public. Is that what you're reading now?
I just read online. In The Brutalist, I'm asking ChatGPT. In The Brutalist, the cultural center that Laszlo builds is meant to be his architectural masterpiece. Whether it officially opens is left ambiguous. The film leans heavily into themes of artistic struggle, personal sacrifice, and the tension between vision and reality. Laszlo pours everything into the project, but like many grand brutalist structures, the fate seems uncertain, whether due to financial struggles, political interference, or the changing tides of architectural taste. The movie's ending suggests that even if the building is completed, it might never truly serve its intended purpose, reinforcing the film's melancholic tone about the cost of artistic ambition.
Yeah,
I get that. Yeah,
absolutely.
That sounds about right. I perceived it to be open, but I think that you're right. I don't think that we never officially see it open or know that it's open. We just hear about it being constructed. So the building was completed,
Yeah.
but whether it was open is, I guess at that point it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think you see, like, especially with Laszlo's family, because his niece, which we haven't mentioned, was also brought from Jerusalem as well. And like, I think you see Laszlo trying to achieve the American dream. I think, like, and then going to, like, all, a full going into it, and then between American dream and his artistic vision, like, I think that was his main path there. I think you have his wife, who was tolerating that dream and just trying to make it work, but at more of a healthy level, like kind of any other immigrant that's that goes to America trying to make a better lives for themselves. And then even they were having that dinner with their niece, and kind of flash for a little bit. Obviously, she was engaged, and they said that they wanted to go back to Jerusalem, and that was they were like, "Why would you do that? You're in America." It's like, well, I'm not happy here. And I feel like there was never a point in the movie where she was happy to be there, and she just wanted to go home. And I feel like, so I think between the three people within his family, you can see like the different stages of how they were reacting to coming to America, which I also found was interesting. But I feel like there was overall just a lot going on in this movie. And I don't know if you take away one theme over the other, if it makes it a stronger movie, if it was just about the artistic vision with sly implications of the American myth, or if it was focusing on the American myth with a small implications of the artistic vision, how far you're willing to go. I feel like ultimately it just bogged me down with its extremely long runtime, trying to fit, basically, like you suggested earlier, 2 movies into one.
Yeah, it just felt like they just tried to do. There's too much. Like, this could have been a much stronger film if you had severely condensed it and maybe stripped some of the outer themes and focus on some of the core themes. Like, if you had focused on this dynamic, this whole rich and poor dynamic, and this whole immigrant story, and like cut out all the other stuff, it could have been I think it would have been a much stronger film.
Yeah, and I feel like there was just a lot in there that, it's just like, it just needed to be cut. Like, I'm sure there's some people that argue for its long runtime, and people are calling it this, this great American epic. It's a masterpiece, and I'm sure I can see that. I can understand that for some people. It's just not for me. Like, I do feel like in this particular case, more was not good.
And this is also a one and done for me. Like, I don't think I could ever sit through this movie ever again.
It's a lot. It's a commitment.
Yeah,
it's a large commitment.
So I guess let's do box office, and then we'll go to final thoughts.
Yeah. So, excuse me. This movie had a budget of $9.6 million. At the time of this recording, this movie is made from A24. So, it's also, as I read that, it's quite shocking that you get this movie for under $10 million. Like, there is a lot in this movie that I feel like they were able to squeeze in here for that amount of money, given the movies.
It's very character driven, so a lot of it is due to there's not a lot of additional like elements. I mean, it is a period piece, so there's the cost that it goes with that. There are a lot of things that incur that high cost, but it seems like they were able to keep it down relatively low, which I think is great.
Compared to what we just talked about with The Complete Unknown, that had a budget anywhere between $50 to $70 million.
Yeah.
Now, could that have gone to the actors? 100%.
Probably. Yeah.
Like, to secure, especially Timothée Chalamet, who is a hot actor right now, especially coming off of his over $500 million box office for Wonka, and then did the same with Dune Part 2.
Yeah, which he's not nominated for.
Which he's not nominated for.
We're gonna get into that in a little bit later, but that's wild.
But like, the fact that movie is very similar in the sense that it was I shouldn't say that. This movie's a biopic. Like, A Complete Unknown is a biopic. The Brutalist is a fictional story. So maybe part of it was maybe securing the rights to adapt the book off of a famous musician. So we don't know exactly where the budget goes into. But seeing a movie that is technically is a period piece, so it's similar in that regard. And I feel like this movie The Brutalist was bigger in scale, and that could maybe just be a compliment of its cinematography, which I do feel like it was. Some shots were gorgeously, presented. Some shots were gorgeously done. Like I enjoyed some of the scenery that was presented with these, long, large landscapes, as well as like the chaoticness of the Statue of Liberty, it being flipped over around, which is again them being a symbol. Like the Statue of Liberty is a symbol of the American G, but when you flip it upside down, it's like maybe the American myth. So and that was also all over the poster as well. So there's, going into those themes. But yeah, anyway, a budget of $9.6 million. Domestically, it's made 9.3, internationally 2.3 million, with a grand total of $11.7 million. So like the movie is probably just going to make back its budget. It's from A24, so it's a very low budget independent film that is getting a lot of attention right now. And it's getting a limited release. It's not getting a wide release, so that's probably contributing to its low box office numbers. And I'm sure once it hits home, because I feel like the long run time is definitely going to shy people away from it. And I'm curious what they're going to do once the movie hits for people to watch at home, if that intermission's even necessary at that point. So I'm curious if they're still going to include that or not.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
But like maybe it's definitely getting the attention, so maybe it can reap back some of its money in the VOD market. But with that, Ernesto, your final thoughts on The Brutalist?
Even though it does have this really long time, there are, like, story-wise, I think it's there. I think it has a lot of themes. It connects them very well. Some of the things are a little drawn out. I think I'm going to go very similar to Complete Unknown. I think I'm going to hit 3.5. And as far as, like, hold on. What is it? Let's see. What is it nominated for?
Oh, yes. Let's go over that as well. So it hits 10 nominations, which is the second most at this year's Oscars. It's nominated for Best Picture. It's also nominated for Best Directing. It's nominated for Best Lead Actor, which for Adrien Brody. Best Supporting Actress for Felicity Jones, Best Supporting Actor in Guy Pearce, Best Original Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Production Design, and Best Original Score.
I think the only thing I don't agree with is the screenplay. I think everything else, I could see it. Maybe even, like, I'll even give it the Best Picture nomination, because I think that there's enough there in the film to appreciate, like, what it's trying to put out. But I don't think it should win, but I think it at least deserves to be at least recognized. But to me, the writing is just not there. But then if the writing is not there, then why does it get Best Picture? So then, I got to talk myself through my own theories. So
yeah. Well, you also said that you enjoyed the story of it. So is the writing there?
But the writing is there, but it's too long.
Yeah.
To me, it's too long. So the writing is there, the story is there, but there's too many. It's like too drawn out,
Yeah, I'm always curious because the Oscars can be hit or miss sometimes. Like, is this movie is this movie going to be winning the technical awards, or is this movie going to be winning the big awards? And I feel like it could sway either way. Like, I can 100% see it for production design, film editing, cinematography. And original score, like I mentioned, that bombastic, like, instrumental score that we got at the beginning of the film was what hooked me. I was like, honestly, when this started, I was like, oh, I'm in for a ride. And then I was like, oh, okay, that's the ride we got. And like, I can understand it for directing. I do agree with you. Like, the performances, some of the behind the scenes stuff, I can even give it for Best Original Screenplay. It's a bold movie to come out with.
That's true.
And then I can understand the Best Picture. Like, I get where we land on, but ultimately, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. I think its long run. Okay. The long run time is really what bogs the movie down, in the midst of really, really deep themes and character development within this movie. So I feel like the writing is strong, more in its themes than anything else, with on top of strong performances, but it just bogged down by its long run time. And I think it was a little bit brutal at times to watch some of these scenes. Thank you. To watch some of these scenes. And again, this is like, maybe we're not getting it, but this is just our opinion on the movie. A lot of people are enjoying it for what it's worth. And I think there is a lot to get out of this. But I think you're right. This is kind of a one and done. Like, we watched the movie, we're talking about it now. Like, I can understand the Oscars. I feel like there's a point where I'll be like, if I don't understand why the Oscars is doing it, I'm even more frustrated with the movie. But at least I'm walking out of this being like, I understand where you're coming from, Oscars. I just don't 100% agree with it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So there you go. That's our spoiler review on The Brutalist. 2 Oscar-nominated Best Picture films. So as of right now, we have recorded 8, where you can go back and listen to those episodes out of the 10 nominated Best Picture films, and we will continue to review all of those. We're going to find the other 2 in addition to more reviews on the rest of the nominations. But
yeah, I'm also going to create, and also on our YouTube channel, I'm going to create like I did last year. I'll have a playlist that'll have all the Oscar movies, that anything that's nominated for this year's Oscars, we'll put into a playlist, so you guys can just pick from there.
There you go. Yeah, definitely go back if you haven't reviewed. Definitely go back if you're also planning to the same journey we have, but not have watched some of those movies yet. So go watch those movies. Go find our episodes. Go find the playlist. Think of us as your companion piece when you watch these movies. So with that, we're going to be diving into the 97th Academy Award nominations. Like I said earlier, after numerous delays due to the LA fires, the nominations for the 97th Academy Awards have finally been announced. So we're going to go over some of the big nominations, some of the snubs, some of the surprises, in addition to how it compares to the other award shows like the Golden Globes, Critics' Choice, Screen Actors, Directors Guild, Producers Guild, Writers Guild, all that stuff, all compiled into all this for you guys. So let's start with the nominations for Best Picture. And those films are Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked. I feel like 8 out of those 10 nominations were more or less expected. It was the 2 films, which were Nickel Boys and I'm Still Here, that eventually they ended up getting, but they took over the last 2 slots that a lot of people were not just didn't know where the Academy was going to land on that. And it looks like they landed on Nickel Boys and I'm Still Here. But there were a lot of snubs that happened for not getting Best Picture. But before we dive into that, Ernesto, what are your thoughts on this list?
Let's see. I agree without seeing Nickel Boys and I'm Still Here. I agree with most of this list except for Amelia Perez. I think Amelia Perez is like not a good movie. Like it's just not good. It's just not good. It's not good. It's like a telenovela. We reviewed it last year, and I still hold the same. It's gonna get nominated, but I just don't agree with like any or most of the nominations for this film. I don't see it. It's, for me, it's not there. I think easily, and you have some snubs written down here, very easily. A Real Pain, like for me, like that would have been a strong contender for Best Picture. That movie is incredible. Like it is like bullshit that movie's not up there. It really is.
And it was in contention. Like it was up there. A lot of people thought it might have snuck in there amongst other snubs there. But you mentioned Amelia Perez, and I just want to. This was getting a lot of early buzz, and now it's even getting even more buzz because with Amelia Perez, it walked away with the most Oscar nominations at 13 Oscar nominations, which is a very large amount. And I've been seeing a lot of this people that have been talking about this film online, and they're like, you know what else has 13 nominations? And I'm going to list some of them right here for you. I can understand, again, people's frustration, because I'm agreeing with you, Ernesto, that I also don't understand why this movie was nominated for 13 nominations, because it also wasn't my favorite. But among other films that were nominated for 13, you have The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, which ended up winning 3 Oscars. The Shape of Water, which ended up winning 4 Oscars. The Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, get out of here. You're telling me Amelia Perez stacks up to Lord of the Rings? Get the fuck out of here.
Which walked away with 4 wins. Who is Afraid of Virginia Woolf, a movie from 1966, highly acclaimed, starring Elizabeth Taylor, and walked away with 5 wins after 13 nominations. Mary Poppins walked away with 5 wins at the Oscars. Chicago walked away with 6 wins at the Oscars. Forrest Gump also walked away with 6 wins, including Best Picture. Shakespeare in Love walked away with 7 wins. Oppenheimer, just recently last year, had 13 nominations, walked away with 7 wins. So, yeah, there's a lot of movies, a lot of high acclaimed movies that, you know, it's easy to compare. Like, look at these big giants, these classics that have been also nominated for 13 Academy Awards. And so I don't know where the Oscars head at, but I'm just not seeing it. And we're not alone here. At the, you know, looking at its Rotten Tomato score, at the critics, it's sitting at a 74. It's not an 80. It's not a 90. It's at a 74. But the audience score is a 20%.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know also a lot of people are comparing the music, especially one that Zoe Saldana sings about, you know, halfway through the movie, specifically about the transition what's her character name? Amelia. With the transition of Amelia. And like a lot of people were referring this song, and then they're playing Wicked in comparison. And they're like, how is this possible? How is this film being highly recognized? And we talked about the film. You can go back and listen to the episode. And there are some things in there that are worth appreciating. But at the end of the day, I don't see it as Best Picture.
I also don't remember.
I truly don't.
Like, there's a lot of things I remember. The one thing I remember, Amelia's transformation from this gangster to this altruistic person who wants to heal the world. Like, I did not believe it. It was an unbelievable transformation for me. Like,
interesting. Yeah, I don't think I ran into those problems. It was just more of the certain themes that were presented in the movie. That I think part of it was that. And I think also part of it how she handled like after the transition, wanted to go back to the old life she had and be part of her family, and then how that kind of just spiraled into something. And I think what I remember the most about our review was the tone. The tone didn't match the music. Like it just felt overly dramatic at times, and like. I think where I'm reading a lot of the Academy is sitting with this movie is that it's they're calling it something they've never seen before, and it was that
doesn't make it good. That doesn't mean it's good.
I agree with you. I was just about to say that people are saying it's something they've never seen before, and it was bold, and it was like, and for those reasons, this is why it's getting all the accolades. But to your point, it doesn't mean that it's good.
Yeah.
So. Given its history with all the other movies that were nominated for 13 nominations, I feel like it's going to be walking away with something. I'll be shocked and almost surprised if out of 13 nominations, it wins 0. But at minimum, it looks like that it's going to walk away, just out has history shown, will at least walk away with 4 or more.
I guess we'll see.
We'll see. But yes, me personally, aside from Amelia Perez, I was very happy to see The Substance nominated for Best Picture. As you know, it was my favorite movie of last year, and I was like, yes! I felt like this was like a win for me. I was like, I have quality. I don't know what they're talking about Amelia Perez, but me and the Academy were on the same page with The Substance. And a lot of people love Wicked, obviously.
Yeah.
So, like, that one, 100% understand that. And I do feel like that Dune Part 2, as much as it definitely deserves to be nominated for Best Picture, no one's talking about it. I feel like Dune Part 2 will unfortunately get very minimal amount of wins, maybe 1 or 2 at the end of the day.
That would literally break my heart. If it doesn't win
it's just
anything, it will literally break my heart.
It's just not being talked about. It's just like it's like, oh yeah, and Dune 2 is there.
That movie still holds up. That movie's incredible.
I want to rewatch it before the Oscars, before we have our Oscars nom.
I've seen it 3 times. And I will, and I also plan on rewatching it before the Oscars. Just because I need that refresher, because I know that movie's great. Like, it deserves to be up there. It deserves more, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Going back to The Substance, which surprisingly, The Substance is only the 7th horror movie ever to be nominated for Best Picture in history, which is crazy to think about. For bonus points, can you think of at least one out of the other 6 movies that were nominated, the horror movies that were nominated for Best Picture?
Birds, Psycho.
Not surprisingly, not Psycho or Birds. Nothing from Alfred Hitchcock, from what I'm reading from this list.
What about Silence of the Lambs?
Yes, that is one.
Horror. There's 6 other.
So you have The Substance and Silence of the Lambs, so there's 5 more.
5 more.
And most of them are pretty relevant to, like, you would know these movies. If one was more recent, by a breakout comedian.
Jordan Peele for Get Out.
Yes, that was nominated for Best Picture. Other movies that were nominated for Best Picture was The Exorcist.
Oh yeah.
Jaws.
Yeah.
The Sixth Sense, and Black Swan. So, I feel like there should be more, but maybe the internet's lying to me. But I feel like there should be more than just those 7. But yeah, some of the snubs that were not nominated for Best Picture was A Real Pain, Challengers, Sing Sing, Saturday Night.
Yeah.
I'm up there with Saturday Night. I love Saturday Night.
I'm with you.
September 5, Baby Girl, Queer, All We Imagine as Light, The Room Next Door, The Piano Lesson, Civil War, and Jury Number 2. Most of those movies that I listed didn't receive any Oscar nominations. I believe out of all the ones that I've listed, only 3 of them were given. At least A Real Pain got like 2 or 3 Oscar noms. Sing Sing got 1 or 2 Oscar noms, and September 5 got 1 or 2 Oscar noms as well. All the other ones didn't get anything. I think a lot of people were surprised that Challengers didn't even get Best Original Score because it won at the Golden Globes.
Yeah,
so
I'm actually surprised that I wouldn't get nominated. I don't see it for anything else except for the score. But yeah.
Yeah, it's but yeah, those were some of the snubs. And looking into the other award shows that were kind of in, like, comparing it to the other ones, we'll start with the Golden Globes and their winners. Here, if you're watching us on YouTube, is an overview of some of the big awards that were awarded. Some of the big winners from the Golden Globes earlier this month that we will dive into as we're going through these nominations. But here's just a visual for those who are watching on YouTube. But the Golden Globe winners that are pertaining to their Best Picture drama went to The Brutalist. Best Picture musical or comedy went to Emilia Perez, and Wicked won for Best Cinematic Achievement. We don't even have enough time for me to even discuss the Best Cinematic Achievement and how stupid that award is. Yeah. But this year was given to Wicked, and I'm just going to say this: Wicked should have been Best Musical or Comedy. Yes. Not Best Cinematic Achievement.
Correct. 100% agree.
But I just look at that one as like, we're just giving that one the popular vote, and it's Wicked. The same thing as last year when they introduced the award and it went to Barbie, and then another movie won for Best Musical or Comedy. So
yeah, that's kind of wild that, like, Emilia Perez won Best Musical or Comedy in the same year as Wicked.
Wicked, yes. But don't worry, Wicked got its Golden Globe. Don't worry. But we'll see how the other award shows respond to Emilia Perez. And honestly, as the other award shows start announcing their winners, we would have we're gonna paint a very clear picture on how that's gonna fare. But time will tell on that. Moving over to the Critics' Choice Awards and their nominations, the Best Picture noms were almost identical as the Oscars Best Picture, with the exception of Sing Sing was nominated instead of I'm Still Here. So basically the same 10 except for those two flopped. According to the Producers Guild Award, the nominees for Outstanding Producer of Theatrical Motion Pictures were almost identical as the Oscar Best Picture noms, with the exception of A Real Pain and September 5 being nominated instead of Nickel Boys and I'm Still Here. So the Producers Guild recognized A Real Pain and September 5 as one of their best pictures. And so a lot of people were looking at the Producers Guild and thought, okay, A Real Pain has a slot as in the Best Picture nomination. And I feel like it should have been. I 100% agree. But Nickel Boys and I'm Still Here were definitely the two biggest surprises to come out of the Oscars. And I'm pretty sure, at least for the Best Picture conversation, and I'm pretty sure Nickel Boys only has the one nomination. So it's kind of surprising to see that, oh, we're giving you the Best Picture nom, but we're not going to nominate you for anything else. Whereas A Real Pain was nominated for Best Original Screenplay and Best Supporting Actor. But I just want to double check what I said here. No, I take that back. Nickel Boys was nominated for 2 Oscars. It was also nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. So there's that. Let's move on to Best Director. The nominees for Best Director. We have Sean Baker for directing Anora, Brady Corbett for directing The Brutalist, James Mangold for directing A Complete Unknown, Jazquez Undard.
Shaks Aduard.
Thank you. For directing Amelia Perez, and Orly Farget,
I think,
for directing The Substance. So I'm more or less okay with these nominations, giving everything else. There were definitely some big snubs in there.
I mean,
100%.
Denis Villeneuve for Dune 2, John Chu for Wicked, Jesse Eisenberg for A Real Pain. Take Amelia Perez off this list.
Also Edward Berger for Conclave, which all received Critics' Choice nominations for Best Director. So all those who were snubbed at the Oscars were recognized as Critics' Choice nominations. So that's interesting. I do feel like, yes, swap out Amelia Perez. Any one of them would have done just fine, in my opinion. More so honestly, for me, the biggest snub was John M. Chu for Wicked.
Yeah, come on. Everything that he did for that film, come on.
Yeah, I that one I don't understand. Compared to the Directors Guild of Academy. Nope. Let me start over. Compared to the Directors Guild of America nominations for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Theatrical Feature Film, the nominations were the same, with the exception of Edward Berger being nominated for Conclave instead of Orly Farget for The Substance, which I find that was the one that was the difference, because I feel like both of them should have been nominated for Best Directing. And so that to me is interesting, but I'm happy to see The Substance because it definitely should get the direction in that movie was insane.
I agree. I 100% agree with that.
We already talked about that. The winner of the Golden Globe for Best Director went to Brady Corbett for directing The Brutalist. So The Brutalist already has that under its belt compared to the other award shows, and time will tell with the other ones on how it will fare, specifically with the Critics' Choice and the Directors Guild. I think the Directors Guild is going to be the one to kind of potentially put the nail in the coffin of where this might land. And the front runner is Brady Corbett, and he might win it. The people are definitely responding to The Brutalist in that way. And in my opinion, I feel like that's where I would like to see that highest nomination stop. Like if as we talked about before, splitting the nomination, if he was able to get it for Best Director, I don't think it should be for Best Picture.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I prefer other nominations to win there, which we'll dive into our Oscars prediction episode.
Yeah.
Best Lead Actor. The nominations for actor in a lead. No, let's start over. The nominees for actor in a leading role goes to Adrien Brody in the Brutalist, Timothée Chalamet in A Complete Unknown, Coleman Domingo in Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes in Conclave, and a surprise one, Sebastian Stan in The Apprentice. So your thoughts here?
I mean, I haven't seen Coleman Domingo in Sing Sing, but I think
this is the second time.
Second time that he is nominated. He's like the only thing that's nominated from the film that he's in that year. But there's some strong ones up there. Also, I mean, I would have liked to have seen Timothée Chalamet in Dune Part 2. Like seeing Timothée Chalamet go against Timothée Chalamet. I mean, because him as Paul Atreides was absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It looks like no acting noms went to Dune Part 2, obviously. Some of the snubs that came out of the lead actor was the big one was Daniel Craig in the movie Queer. They were saying that was probably a career best performance, and so along with not getting nominated for Best Picture, apparently a lot of people were surprised that he was not nominated for Best Lead Actor, and instead the biggest surprise that it went to Sebastian Stan in The Apprentice. Also, some snubs were Hugh Grant in Heretic. Both Daniel Craig and Hugh Grant were nominated at the Critics' Choice Awards. Compared to the Screen Actors Guild nominations, it basically shares the same with the Oscars, with the exception of Daniel Craig being nominated for his role in Queer instead of Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. As we go into the Golden Globe winners, the award went to Adrien Brody for Best Drama in The Brutalist, and Sebastian Stan won for Best Musical Comedy in A Different Man, not The Apprentice, another movie that Sebastian Stan was in, which is mind-boggling to me. That I would have been more okay if Sebastian Stan got nominated for A Different Man rather than The Apprentice at the Oscars, but instead the Golden Globe gave it to him for A Different Man, and then he's nominated for another one at The Apprentice. I mean, maybe that just shows how good of an actor he is, but to me, it just also shows how divided some of these movies were to the different factions of the award circuit. Which is
I'm kind of curious. I mean, I haven't seen either films, so I'm curious like which one is better, because I do think A Different Man is nominated for something else.
Is Best Makeup.
Best Makeup.
Makeup and hairstyling. Yeah. So we were definitely, we will definitely be watching that movie for as we go down the Oscars road, as well as The Apprentice. And I guess when we have that conversation, we can see if he was nominated for the wrong movie, I guess, so to speak. So there's that with it. Moving on to best nominees for best best actress in a leading role. We have Cynthia Erivo in Wicked, Carla Sofia Gascon for Amelia Perez, Mickey Madison in Honora, Demi Moore in The Substance, and again, the surprise nomination, Fernanda Torres in I'm Still Here. I think this is no surprise for the most part for most of these nominations, given everything else we're comparing it to. Carla Sofia Gascon has become the first openly transgender actor to be nominated for the Academy Award. So she's making history there. Some of the snubs, and there were quite a bit of snubs going into this particular category. First of which was Pamela Anderson in The Last Showgirl, which I remember reading a lot about her praise in that film. And she was also nominated at the Golden Globes as well as the Screen Actors Guild. Angelina Jolie was also snubbed for her role in Maria, which that film did get nominated for Best Cinematography. And it was also, her performance was also nominated at the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice. Another movie that we haven't talked about yet, but a performance from Maureen Jean Baptiste in a movie called Hard Truth was also snubbed, and she was nominated at the Critics' Choice. Nicole Kidman, she was nominated at the Golden Globes, but not for the Oscars for her role in Baby Girl. And Tilda Swinton was also nominated at the Golden Globes, but not the Oscars for The Room Next Door. A lot of people were talking about The Room Next Door for potential noms, but clearly it wasn't there either. So
yeah, I mean, you could have switched out. This is it's an interesting category. I have my initial pick, but I want to see I'm Still Here to make my final decision.
Yeah, obviously we've seen a lot of these, and I think there's an argument for the ones we have seen, the 4 out of the 5. I think there's an argument for either one of these ladies to deserve the Best Picture nomination.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not particularly upset with the choices here. Compared to the Screen Actors Guild nom, it's basically the same, with the exception of Pamela Anderson being nominated at the Screen Actors Guild, instead of Fernando Torres for I'm Still Here. So I know a lot of people were talking about Pamela Anderson's performance in that movie.
I've heard good things. I do want to see it.
I do want to see it as well. This is definitely like a comeback role for her, and a lot of people thought that she would have shared the same road as Jamie Lee Curtis with Everything Everywhere All at Once, but clearly that was not the case. Or even Michelle Yeoh out in her, older in her career, having some resurgence there as well, but that was not in the cards for her. And then just comparing it to the Golden Globes winners, and this may not come to a surprise for some either, but Fernando Torres did win for best lead actress in a drama for I'm Still Here. So there's definitely, she already got one under her belt. So that's, she has some now good legs to stand on going into the Oscars. Also, Demi Moore won for Best Musical or Comedy in The Substance, which I was very happy to see that because her performance was crazy. Going into Best Actor in a Supporting Role, we have Yuro Brosnov. Say it again. Yeah, I think you're muted.
Oh, Yura Borisov.
Thank you. For his role in Honora, Karen Culkin for his performance in A Real Pain, Edward Norton in his performance in A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce for his performance in The Brutalist, and again, surprise, Jeremy Strong for his performance in The Apprentice. Now, we have 2 Succession alums here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do. Jeremy Strong and Kieran Culkin.
So it's kind of fun to see them, coming out now Oscar nominees.
Well, I mean, there's a clear front runner for me, but
yes,
I still have to see The Apprentice. But you already know, I think it's very clear who my front runner is. So I don't know, but what do you?
I think we were, like I said, again, with the exception of Jeremy Strong, we have yet to see The Apprentice. But out of the 4 we have seen, again, I'm not particularly mad with these nominations.
No,
we were just praising. It's a solid list here. We were praising Guy Pearce's performance a minute ago, as well as Edward Norton's for his very calming approach to.
Even Yura Borisov, he was great in that movie.
Yeah, I'm not particularly mad with these choices. Some of the snubs that people were talking about, the big one was Denzel Washington for his performance in Gladiator 2.
Yeah.
He was a clear front runner for a while, and then all of a sudden he wasn't.
Well, just Gladiator 2, I think just the nominations in general for that movie just dropped off.
Absolutely. There was at one point that movie was being looked at for Best Picture, and then I don't think it walked away with much nominations except for visual effects and maybe one other one as well. But yeah, Denzel Washington, he was also nominated at the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice, but not at the Oscars. Clarence McLean, who for a movie we haven't seen yet, for his performance in Sing Sing. Mm-hmm. He was also nominated at the Critics' Choice. And another one was Jonathan Bailey for his performance in Wicked. He was nominated at the Screen Actors Guild Awards. So that was a surprise, I'm sure, nomination for the Screen Actors Guild, but did not translate over to the Oscars. Again, compared to the Screen Actors Guild nominations, it's the same with the Oscars with the exception of Jonathan Bailey in Wicked being nominated instead of Guy Pearce in The Brutalist, which I find that was the difference between the two. It wasn't Jeremy Strong, it was actually Guy Pearce compared to the other one. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then as far as the Golden Globe winner, Karen Culkin won for A Real Pain. So I think he is a strong front runner going into the Oscar season, now that he has the Golden Globe under his belt. Moving on to Best Actress in a Supporting Role, we have Monica Barbaro in A Complete Unknown, Ariana Grande in Wicked, Felicity Jones in The Brutalist, Isabel Rossellini in Conclave and Zoe Saldana in Amelia Perez. The only one I'm quite confused about is Isabella Rossellini in Conclave. I don't feel like her performance stood out to me.
I agree. But the one thing I do agree with for Amelia Perez is this nomination for Zoe Saldana. I think that she did.
Yeah.
I think she did fantastic. I thought she was like the only really good thing about that movie.
Yeah, and we I think we praised the performances throughout that movie as well, but I think Zoe Saldana's performance was definitely the stronger out of our three leading ladies.
Correct.
That's 100% for sure. The biggest snub, in my opinion, was Margaret Qualley for The Substance.
I agree.
Like, I think we could have swapped out Isabella Rossellini for Margaret Qualley because she was as integral in that film as Demi Moore was.
Yes.
And so Margaret Qualley was also nominated for the Golden Globe and the Critics' Choice. So again, quite surprised that she did not nab the Oscar nom here. Other ones that people were saying that were snubbed were Selena Gomez and Amelia Perez, as she was nominated for the Golden Globe. Danielle Deadwaller, who was her performance in The Piano Lesson, that got snubbed completely, that film. That's available on Netflix, and she got nominated at the Screen Actors Guild as well as the Critics' Choice. We have Jamie Lee Curtis, again, for The Last Showgirl. She was in it with Pamela Anderson. She got the Screen Actors Guild nomination. And Angelou Ellis-Taylor for Nickel Boys. She was nominated at the Critics' Choice, but not the Oscars. Compared to the Screen Actors Guild nominations, it's pretty much sharing the same, with the exception of Danielle Delwater in The Piano Lesson, as well as Jamie Lee Curtis in The Last Showgirl, instead of Felicity Jones and Isabella Rossellini. So, quite surprised that the Screen Actors went with two different actresses and replaced with. I think Felicity Jones should definitely be there.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
I think she'd have phenomenal performance, and the Oscars are right there. And clearly, the Screen Actors did not go for Isabella Rossellini and instead went with Danielle Deadwater in The Piano Lesson. So I haven't seen that movie, so I can't speak to it. Same. But I think the Screen Actors knew that didn't go to Isabella Rossellini.
Yeah. So
that's just me. And then the Golden Globe winner went to Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez. So I can 100% see that as well. Now going to Best Original Screenplay. The nominees are Honora, The Brutalist, A Real Pain, September 5, and The Substance. I'm actually okay with this list.
Yeah, I'm good with this list. I haven't seen September 5. I know you have, but
yes.
That's the only one I haven't. That's the one I have to see on this list. I'm just really happy that A Real Pain is on this list.
And I am happy that The Substance is on this list. I'm actually pretty much happy every time I see The Substance on any list. Some of the snubs were the challengers from the Writers Guild. The Writers Guild,
Writing,
the WAG Writers Guild nominations, and the Critics' Choice. The challengers was up there, and I wrote down The Substance. I was wrong. It did get nominated, so that's not necessary. It did not get snubbed. It won. I guess that must have been by mistake. But yeah, compared to the Writers Guild Award nominations, it's actually quite different from what we see for the Oscar nomination. At the Writers Guild, it was A Real Pain, Honora, Challengers, Civil War, and My Old Ass. It only shares 2 of the nominations, which I feel like it's quite surprising to be that different.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, as compared to the Writers Guild. Most of these award shows that we were just talking about, it's only 1 off, maybe 2. This is 3. So they definitely had a different mindset. But A Real Pain and Honora were definitely the 2 up there. And September 5, it snuck in there for Best Original Screenplay. At one point, it was being looked at Best Picture. But it looks like this was its sole nomination. And we'll be talking about that movie a little bit later in a future episode. But at least it got something. Yeah. It got the nod. It kind of snuck in there after all of its talk. Coming in on the final nominations here, we have Best Adapted Screenplay went to A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Amelia Perez, Nickel Boys, and Sing Sing. So Sing Sing nabbed 2 nominations as well as Nickel Boys. Some of the snubs, and I think this one's the big one. Dune Part 2.
Yeah, come on. Get out of here.
Was nominated at the Writers Guild Awards as well as the Critics' Choice, and Wicked was nominated at the Critics' Choice for Best Adapted Screenplay. I think looking at this list, you could have fit one or the other in there, 100%. I'm definitely saying Emilia Perez should not have gotten that Oscar nom for Best Adapted Screenplay. I can give it its praise and understanding for other ones, not its screenplay. Absolutely not.
No,
get out of here.
No, get out of here. They could just get right off the list. And who knows? Like maybe Nickel Boys or Sing Sing could have been the replacement for one of the other two, because I do feel Dune Part 2 and Wicked should be on this list.
Yes, and I feel like if one over the other, definitely Dune Part 2.
Yeah.
Like that was it was a great film.
Yeah, I agree.
The fact that it's being kind of snubbed in a lot of different categories, specifically for best, like I feel like Dune Part 2 was very like I feel like Dune Part 2 was more snubbed in the writing category, but John M. Chu for Wicked was more snubbed in the director's category.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that.
Compared to the Writers Guild Awards nominations, A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Hitman, Nickel Boys, and Wicked were all nominated. Again, it's 3. It shares 3 out of the 5. We're sharing Sing Sing and Emilia Perez were the difference, and they put in Dune Part 2 and Wicked. So maybe that's the difference right there. We're looking at it between the Writers Guild and Oscars. But even the Writers Guild was like, yeah, Emilia Perez, no, absolutely not. And then the winner of the Golden Globe, because they don't separate between adapted or original, is just screenplay at the Golden Globes, and the winner went to Conclave. So the Conclave has some legs to stand on, and obviously we'll see future award shows on how much it continues to stay that way. And the last nomination we're going to go over is nominees for animated feature film. We have Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and The Wild Robot. Oh man, The Wild Robot.
So glad to see The Wild Robot up there. I've heard a lot of good things about Flow as well, so I'm kind of curious to see that. I'm kind of curious to see that one too.
As of right now, we've talked about it in future in past episodes. We had our own episode on Inside Out 2 and The Wild Robot, and those are great films, definitely worth the nomination. But Flow has a lot of legs to stand on. Yeah. It won the Golden Globe. It's the winner at the Golden Globe. So I was expecting The Wild Robot to take the win, but Flow is proving its worth here, and that's the one I'm most excited to see, because I've heard nothing but great things about Flow, as you said. I've seen Wallace and Gromit makes sense. A lot of people like the claymation, and I think Memoir of a Snail is also another movie that has the claymation style to it, or a unique animation style. But yeah, I'm just happy to see The Wild Robot getting its flowers, and it also got nominated for Best Original Score too. So all good things there. And the only movie that some people said that got snubbed was Moana 2. I don't think it got snubbed at all. Yeah. I think you got your list right there.
Yeah, I think the list is there.
Yeah, I think the list is right there. Moana 2 was nominated at the Golden Globe as well as the Producers Guild Awards. So yeah. So as a grand total, and this graphic is from Variety. Just want to point it out there in case anyone comes after us. Among the most nominations, like we've said before, was Emilia Perez with 13, The Brutalist and Wicked with 10, A Complete Unknown and Conclave with 8, Honora with 6, Dune Part 2, and The Substance with 5. So there are your leading contenders. You can find all of the 25 Oscar nominations on our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. The winners of the 97th Academy Awards will be announced Sunday, March 2nd, live on ABC, and for the first time ever, live on Hulu.
Yeah, about
damn time, Academy, for this to be available on streaming.
Yeah.
Rather than just cable. Sports has been there for years. Thank you.
About damn time.
About damn time. During the ceremony, it was announced that Conan O'Brien will be hosting this year instead of Jimmy Kimmel, who has hosted for the last 2 years. And this one I find interesting. The original song category will forego live performances of the nominated songs, which has been a staple at the Oscar ceremonies in years past, and instead the show will spotlight the songwriters through personal reflections and behind-the-scenes insights from the creative teams behind the music. Okay. How do you feel about that?
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I mean, I would have liked to have seen the songs perform. I think it's a fun part of the show. But if they're trying to do this for time and maybe trying to give some more respect to the people who created the songs as opposed to the people who just performed the songs, then I can see that as well.
I think I need to see how it translates.
Yes.
That's my only.
I'm assuming little videos. It's like, oh, we made this because of this, and then we incorporated this sound for this reason, and this and that. Like, I'm assuming it's going to be a lot of that.
Yeah, and if it is like that, then I'm okay with it instead of seeing the performances. But like last year, we had Ryan Gosling perform "I'm Just Ken," and that was a highlight.
Yeah, it was such a good performance, and then like for that to be such a highlight, and then that to be your response coming out of it, it's like, what's going on, guys?
Right. Yeah, so like I need to see how it's done, but I do like them respecting it as well. Like we're giving some recognition for the people behind the songs, not just the performances. You know what I'm also quite surprised with? I mean, maybe it's just not original, but not seeing any of the Wicked songs. But again, it's not original, so I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
On the list.
But the next one, but then the Wicked Part 2 or Wicked for Good will have original songs because they're writing, I believe, 2 new original songs for the Part 2 of that movie. So then those right. can be considered for next year's Oscars Best Original Song.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. So as we start our journey down the road to the Oscars, here are some dates just to remember for the other award shows that will help kind of paint a clearer picture on how the Oscars might shape out. Like I mentioned earlier, the Critics' Choice did have to delay their ceremony by almost a month. So the 30th Annual Critics' Choice Awards will be Friday, February 7th, and it'll be aired live on E!, hosted by Chelsea Handler. The 2025 Producers Guild Award winners will be announced Saturday, February 8th. The 77th Annual Directors Guild of America Award winners will also be announced Saturday, February 8th. The Writers Guild Award winners will be announced Saturday, February 15th. And then the last big awards will be the 31st Annual Screen Actors Guild Awards will be Sunday, February 23rd, streaming live on Netflix. So these are the award shows that we're going to be paying attention to. And as we go into our Oscar predictions, we're going to be announcing the winners there and kind of seeing where all these different award shows, see where they landed, and kind of paint the picture on how the Oscars might look. So all that wrapping our awards talk. It's a lot. We went through a lot, but here we are. We're ready to be diving into all these nominations. But lastly, we can't talk about the best without talking about the worst. As the Razzies, the 45th Razzie nominations, known for nominating the worst films and performances of the year, have been announced. So here they are. The 45th... I just said that already. Never mind. I wrote that in that line twice. Trip me up. The worst picture nominees went to Borderlands, Joker, Folie à Deux, Madam Web, Megalopolis, and Reagan. I've seen 4 out of the 5, and I can agree with 3 of them.
Yeah, I think I've only seen 2. Yeah, I've seen 2 out of the 5. Obviously, Madam Web is the winner there. It's going to be the winner there.
Borderlands was rough. Megalopolis was also rough. Madam Web, I don't even consider that a movie. Joker, Folie à Deux, I think it's getting wrongfully nominated.
I agree
for this award.
I agree with you 100%. I think it's getting shit on, and I think through time it'll have a different view on it as time progresses.
I agree, and we talked about this in our episode with Matt Lapoli of how we felt about Joker and all the negative and a lot of hate that was surrounding it. But I do think that it was a movie that was not necessarily ahead of its time, but I do think it was strongly misunderstood and potentially misleading to audiences. Once, like, the performances were fine.
Exactly.
Like, it comes nowhere close to the original Joker, but I don't think it was a horrible movie. Like, it was well made. So, like, there's something there.
Yeah.
But I think just a lot of people were just not anticipating what they got, and I think that's why it's getting the large amount of backlash that it is.
Yeah.
For worst actress, we have Cate Blanchett in Borderlands, Lady Gaga in Joker Folie à Deux, Bryce Dallas Howard in Argyle, Dakota Johnson in Madam Web, and surprisingly Jennifer Lopez in Atlas. And that, I enjoyed that movie.
I remember you told me you really liked it.
Yeah, I did. I had a lot of fun with that movie. Maybe her performance wasn't amazing, but I don't think it was like necessarily bad. Yeah, I'm honestly surprised to see Bryce Dallas Howard up there in Argyle. And we did talk about it being a disappointment.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was like Razzie's bad though. I mean, it was just. Just a silly movie.
It wasn't a silly movie. I think Lady Gaga is wrongfully in there.
I agree.
Cate Blanchett, you know, I see that performance as she got there for a paycheck. Dakota Johnson, she didn't even try. That's just me. For worst actor, we have Jack Black in Dear Santa, Zachary Levi in Harold and the Color Purple, Joaquin
Crayon.
Phoenix in...
Purple. Color Purple's a different movie.
You're right. That was last year's nomination. Yeah. Zachary at the Oscars, not the Razzies. Zachary Levi for Harold and the Purple Crayon. Thank you. Joaquin Phoenix in Joker Folie à Deux. Dennis Quaid in Reagan, and Jerry Seinfeld in Unfrosted. Did you end up seeing Unfrosted?
No.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah, I remember you said you said good things.
Yeah, it was a solid comedy. I don't think he did a bad performance. Again, I think it's just silly. I think there is room to be silly. Like, but you don't. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. And lastly, the nominees for worst prequel, remake, ripoff, and or sequel, we have The Crow, which I heard was pretty bad.
Which is sad because I really wanted it. I liked the Crow series, and I thought Bill Skarsgård would have done really well, and I didn't get a chance to see it. So it's sad that it's on this list.
It's crazy that I totally forgot that Bill Skarsgård was in it, and he was also in Nosferatu. Wow. So like the contrast in that, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Joker Folie à Deux, Craven the Hunter, which a movie. Have you seen it yet?
No. But that's the movie that Sony said, all right, we're done making these movies. So it has to be. I guess it is really bad.
I will watch it eventually.
Yeah, eventually.
Mufasa the Lion King, which I'm actually quite surprised to see that because I've been hearing a lot of people actually enjoying the movie itself. They're just questioning the music.
Yeah, same.
And the last one, which I can also agree with, is Rebel Moon 2, The Scargiver. That movie was all action. I think, honestly, a worse movie is the first movie, the part 1. I more like part 2 because it was just story, but part 1 was all set up and it was boring. And part 2 was not great either, but at least it had action in it. So
that's fair.
There's that. The full list of nominees can be found at Razzies.com. The winners will be announced Saturday, March 1st, notoriously a day before the Oscars. So there it is. It's a lot coming at you guys, but the nominations are here. You can expect in the coming weeks that from here to the Oscars, most, if not all of our episodes will be kind of tackling some of the nominations we haven't before. I know we're already looking at trying to get Nickel Boys and I'm Still Here into a future episode. We want to devote some time into the international feature nominations. We want to devote some time into the animated nominations as well, and then slowly start chipping away. Like you've already started the documentary shorts. I want to start tackling the documentary features, and then the live action shorts and the animated shorts are always fun ones to try to nail down. But every year they always have like these animated shorts ones in the theaters. So
yeah, so it's like I'm kind of saving those for last because then I can just if I can just go to the theater and watch them all, then I will. But like the I've already knocked out the docu shorts and I'm halfway through one of the documentaries.
Okay, so yeah, you're definitely going in there. And then if we have time, we obviously will start tackling some of the technical nominations. Like I think we have one for cinematography, which we haven't seen yet for Maria. Better Man is another movie that came out earlier this year that got nominated. It got panned.
Mm-hmm.
That movie got hardcore panned at the box office, but yet here it is with an Oscar nomination for Best Visual Effects. So we're going to try to tackle that one as well. And then some of the acting noms, especially coming from The Apprentice,
Mm-hmm.
apparently. That's one we got to look out for. So yeah, we're in the thick of it. There might be one episode between now and then which might be devoted to basically all of our nerd talk with Captain America: Brave New World.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, you can anticipate that for the most part, the entire month of February is going to be devoted to the Oscars. So, I think that's pretty.
Yeah, it's usually common practice for us.
Yeah, so February's Oscars month. That's what it is. That's what we love to do. So if you're looking forward to that as much as we are, be sure to continue to listen to us on our road to the Oscars. And and then we're going to have our predictions episode, and then shortly after our reactions episode.
Yeah.
This is our moment, Ernesto.
This is our time to shine. And once again, I feel we're more prepared this year than we were the year prior. So every year we get a little better.
I think we got a system down.
Yeah.
We're already you're already chipping away at some of these.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, trying to learn from my mistakes year after year.
Yeah, there you go. If you want more from us, you can always turn to our social media channels. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and as of right now, TikTok at Box Office Bingers, our X and Letterboxd page at Box Office Binger, and our Threads and Instagram page at Box Office _Bingers. The fun does not stop here and continues on our social media channels. So as Christina says, follow all of them, please.
Yeah. Follow all the
very much
things.
appreciated. Follow all the things, please. Period. Thank you, each and every one of you, for listening to us just talk about movies. Really do appreciate it. Come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. And for that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
I've been Ernesto Santos. See ya.